Man, I know what you're thinking. It's the weekend. We thought we'd have a couple days, couple ogre-free days. No rest for the wicked or weary. And if I can quit screen sharing my friend here, maybe we can start. We were talking about some random stuff on Twitter. If anybody is here that was watching us on Twitter, we don't really plan on carrying those conversations forward. I really don't know what we're going to talk about. I just thought it's Sunday. I personally have nothing better to do than light up this doobie. Stories and myself at the very end, we're starting to discuss air-powered rifles and pistols, and it's a really dear spot in my heart. But there's so many things to talk about. The great reptilian conspiracy, a la David Icke, the CFR, and all of these things are out there for us to think about. David Rockefeller and oh my goodness, I'm going to say it. Well, I guess I'm not because I can't think of it now. The Rothschilds, right? The Rothschilds, the wicked Rothschilds. So now I'll just stick what I said I was going to do. Everybody knows me. I'm the Laughing Ogre. We have Artemis Brain Sample and weltschmerz stories. Probably mangled the first part, but tell them who you are, boys, and I'll get my shit together here.
Artemis, you start.
What are you, shy all of a sudden? Yeah. I'm Artemis Brain Sample.
Oh my, that was very quick. Okay. Yeah, and I'm weltschmerz.
I have survived 2 heart attacks, a fall off of a glacier from 1,200 feet, and 4 car accidents.
That's not too bad. That's not too bad. I survived a motorcycle accident with 200 kilometers on the Autobahn. That's also not bad.
That's not bad. That's a good thing to walk away from.
I've been in a couple really bad motorcycle accidents. I struck a deer going 75 in the middle of the night. That was the last one on my Goldwing, on my 1500cc Goldwing. Damn near cut the deer in half.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But the fall and the resulting accident, it devastated my left side. I'm kind of lucky because I'm hairy, but everything, especially I go like that, I'm not even into like putting it on camera really showing. My whole arm was just burnt off, road rash, and busted up. My shoulder. That's a long story. It's sad and it sucks. But motorcycle accidents, they can be rough. That's for damn sure. Absolutely. 200 kilometers an hour. I think that goes to see this 120.
Oh
yeah, and that.
Oh yeah, no, 100 is
120 mile an hour. That's not walking.
No, definitely not. And the motorcycle was crashing on me, so I flipped over the front wheel, and yeah, that was not so fun.
What were you riding?
Pardon me?
What were you riding? What kind of bike was it?
Ducati. I can only drive Italian motorcycles, so it was.
I had a Cagiva.
A Cagiva? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I owned a Ducati 925i. What was it, 930, whatever it was. I liked it. I felt like the bike, as sporty as the frame was, should have had something more than the 45 parallel twin, the 45-degree twin. It just wasn't.
You mean like a bigger engine, like a faster engine?
Yeah, it didn't even have to really be bigger than a 900. I mean, I at one time had a Suzuki GSXR 750R, and that inline 4-cylinder, that some bitch would scream. I mean, it was way more powerful than the almost 1,000cc Ducati. But you know what I got to say is that Ducati really had a lot of torque. When you hit the throttle right away, you felt the power. Whereas the GSXR, it took a little building up. Once you got it up over about 8,000 RPMs, though, gone.
Yeah, but then you had a 2-valve engine, because of the 4-valve engine, the Testa Strata engine, that has almost the same power like a 750 Suzuki. I mean, I had 3 different ones. The 998, it had like 120 something horsepower, and then the 1098, it had like 160, 170 horsepower. I mean, that's enough for a motorcycle, in my opinion.
Oh, that's a tremendous amount. Yeah. No, in fact, the one that I had stories was, I think it was a 99. It was a 99 something, and it was a 1988 model. So it was, I believe,
Yeah,
It might have been a 2-valve per cylinder. It was what I would consider a dog. The Cajiva was nice. It was a all-terrain, you know, what do you call it? Enduro. You could ride it on the dirt or on the street. It was, man, sucker was nice. It was a tank. Also 4-stroke, 2-cylinder. You know,
I flipped a mower that had a 27-horse Kohler when I was going about 4 miles an hour.
You son of a bitch. Well, you've got us.
Wait, it does get better because I ended up upside down with it on top of me in a ditch with about 3 feet of water in it. So I was effectively pinned to the bottom of a creek by 1,400 pounds of steel.
That's not too fun. Yeah.
It was one of those moments where they occasionally talk about how your body can pump so much adrenaline at once that you're capable of superhuman strength. It was almost one of those. It wasn't quite that dramatic, but I remember opening my eyes, being upside down, being pinned, and not being able to use my left arm, and still managed to flip that fucking mower off of me. Flipped it all the way over and right side up into the water, and got up and walked out of it bleeding like a bitch. Somehow my calf had come to rest on the motor, which wasn't that big a deal because it was also underwater, but I still ended up with a real nice fucking cherry out of it. It was boss sent me home for the rest of the week. He said, the reason I don't do this kind of work anymore is because I was afraid I was actually going to die. And I think you might be thinking that too. So why don't you go home for the rest of the week?
Oh, man.
It's a good boss. But when I was driving motorcycles, I was like at least once a year I was in the hospital. But after that last crash, I totally skipped it and said, yeah, okay, I was too close to death and I don't want to try it again. I can totally understand that.
I've been riding. I wish the old man was here because it's almost hard for some people to wrap their mind around. But I was 7 years old the first time that my stepdad, he was my dad, he raised me, threw me the keys to the Honda 400 CB motorcycle and said, go up to Nearing's and get me a Coca-Cola and a Butterfinger. And I actually pulled it into a guy's, it's a long story. But the first time I took one of my dad's road bikes to the store, it was just a kid. I had to show off to a gentleman named Glenn Morgan that also had a garage like my dad did. My dad was a transmission mechanic. He did body work. And I was always at one of the other shops with the men, getting tools, cleaning stuff, whatever, just being like a fly on the wall. And I just love that kind of thing. So I pulled in there to show off and his pea gravel in his yard. Man, when I was like turning the bike around, I was like, Glenn. I got in the deep pea gravel and just laid the bike over. I didn't even know that he was home then, and I started bawling and yelling, Glenn! I couldn't pick the bike up, and all I could think of is, oh, shit, because my old man, he was very cool. You know, obviously letting the kid ride the motorcycle up. I used to drive his Duster up when I didn't have no license, obviously. I mean,
he was expecting you to not be an asshole, and you were in the process of being an asshole when you dumped his bike.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, if he would have known. I told him about it years later. Of course, he just laughed it off then and said, oh, I wouldn't have done nothing, son. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
if you'd have known I dumped him like that.
At least my dad has the decency to say, I don't remember that.
Yeah, he would have busted me. But I all of those years, I never wrecked I never was in a motorcycle accident. I take that back. I was in one with Mrs. Ogre, but it was a walk away, an accident at like 30 mile an hour kind of thing, but we walked away from. That deer, it did something to me, man. I don't have a motorcycle now. I was going to get one this summer and decided to look for like an Alfa Romeo or something like that. And a nice little convertible. I probably won't get I did something to me, man. I mean, because like you said, stories, I was being pushed down the road by a 950-pound, 1,500cc Goldwing. And
yeah, that's not fun. And that's really not fun. So
a person that saw the accident when they came over, the first thing they said to me, I got up, I was looking at my hand like this just because it was gone. The first thing I said to him was, because he was like, dude, I can't believe you lived through that. First thing he said to me. And I looked at him and went, I ain't gonna be playing my guitar for a while. I like couldn't even hardly say that because I was trying to get a breath. I had like not the wind quite knocked out of me, but I was still getting my breath kind of back. It felt like I just was blowing up like a balloon is what it felt like. Like I was just keep on inflating.
Yeah.
Having had a couple of heart attacks, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh fuck, that's got to be worse. I've heard from people that've had heart attacks that was like worse than breaking a leg or anything else they've ever been through.
No, it's not even the most pain I've ever been in my life.
No, Lord,
recovering from hemorrhoid surgery is way more fucking painful than fucking heart attack.
I don't.
I don't have a personal experience with that.
Yeah, it fucking is.
Well, I've got a roid or two. I did some heavy manual labor, but they're not bad enough to do anything.
Mine are internal. I don't have much going on down there as far as hemorrhoidal tissue anymore. But yeah, recovering from that's the most pain I've ever been in.
Kind of sit on the little donut.
No, fuck no. That wouldn't have done me any good. It took me a week to stop screaming every time I took a shit. I'm not even kidding.
Oh man, I don't even. That's a tough one for me to even think about. Well, this is starting out well. We're going from motorcycle accidents to asshole surgery.
I've never ridden a motorcycle on my own, so I don't have a motorcycle story. But I can talk about my butthole.
No, that's worse. I gotta give it to you. And I don't know if anybody's missing out anything. Probably people like stories, and there's a feeling of freedom and whatnot, but apparently the same thing happened to both of us. It got knocked out of us when the realization that all the freedom you feel, you don't even have a windshield or a door in between you and death. Death is just right there riding along with you.
It's one thing for there to be a car involved where you have somebody to blame and you have a history. You can go back and say, if I see somebody do something like that, I'll know in the future to react differently. It was a fucking deer. Sentient being that decided to run out in front of your ass.
Oh, that was, man, if you knew where I was at. The fucked up thing, boys, is the corner that I was on was Shearer and Deer Road. It was 2:00 in the morning, and I took off from a four-way stop on my Gold Wing like some kind of fucking stud. I told you I was going 75 when I hit the deer, and I was in third gear. So, yeah, I could say that it was just the deer, but nobody in their right bloody mind would have been riding their freaking Gold Wing 2:30 in the morning where I was at. I've seen deer eyeballs all night until I got there. I rode for about 3 hours before I actually wrecked. It's a long, sad story. Probably being punished. I was out whoring around like I usually do.
I remember driving from Salt Lake City to Jackson Hole in the middle of the night. Literally left Salt Lake at midnight and drove through the night to get to Jackson Hole. And I remember driving past herds of mule deer on the freeway, but not in my lane. And I passed so many of them that I got to the point that I wouldn't even slow down as I drove through them.
Those are big fuckers too, man.
They are. They're ass to eyeball when you're sitting in a car.
Yeah, those are big, some bitches.
And it's a great. The best part of the story is that there was somebody with me in the car who was sleeping off of a coke high, and when she woke up, we're passing a deer that I could have hit with my hand, driving 75 miles an hour. If I'd have just stuck it out the window, I'd have slapped a deer right in the ass. And there was another one that it could have the mirror on her side of the car. If the deer would have stuck its tongue out, it would have hit the mirror. And I'm going 75 miles an hour through a fucking herd of these bitches. And she wakes up, and that's where we are. You ever have somebody fall asleep in your car and wake them up by slamming on the brakes and going, "Ah!"
No, Artemis. Okay. No, but I'm sure you have. I'm absolutely positive that you've done that. That's not a joke.
Yeah, obviously, I've done that before too. But this was doing that, but without me hitting the brakes or saying a word. She just woke up in the middle of what she assumed was an accident happening.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Well, what are you going to do? Yeah, we got the chat is even now busting our balls. It's like, fuck me. Nice convo, lads. That's no fast. I don't know why. Everybody gets a spanner here. It's my strange way of being a moron. I wouldn't care if I whatever this channel does over the years, months, days, minutes that I keep it going. That's the way it'll always be. Wouldn't matter to me how many folks is there. If I see somebody without a spanner, I'll just be like, give it to them. Fuck it. I mean, because if you have one, I don't think you can be timed out. I guess maybe it can be, but everybody has the ability to do it to everybody else.
Right.
So if you time somebody else out, they can come back and time your ass out next. You know,
yeah,
exactly. It makes it all even. It's funny to me. Just one of my funny little stupid things I do. At the Academic Ages channel, whom I've actually put up here for a few days, I think I'm his only one. I don't even know why I am, but apparently when he has big guests on, I swing by there and I don't do shit. Like if people are really jerks and just spamming the chat and trolling the chat, like blatantly being dicks, I'll be like, I will mention something like, hey, if you look around here, the Academic Agents chat, you're really the oddball out right now because you're being a moron. And that's stopped it every time. Never timed anybody out or nothing. Just
I got timed out. I can't remember whose it was. I got timed out for using all caps. I was like,
oh man, that sounds like you're like Anthony Bryan Logan.
All right, man. Whatever.
It sounds like ABL. He's great, but I've seen him. I mean, in fact, we're about ready to have Zero on. Zero and his boys, man. When they do that with ABL, they don't fool around. There are rules like that. I don't get it. I guess caps is because you're shouting, right?
Well, generally speaking, except that in a stream chat, it's kind of how you get anybody's attention. I used to write radio copy for broadcast radio, and it was always in all caps because it's just fucking easier to read, especially at a glance. And this is kind of like radio, so I don't know.
I don't get it. For one, the main reason I just can't wrap my mind around it is you can't hear it.
Right? Yeah.
So it's like, oh, you're yelling at me.
Am I?
I was using big letters at you.
I'm pretty sure neither of us actually made any sounds unless you did, which is weird that you can't read without saying the words out loud.
Oh my goodness. Captain Copile's sending me I can't think of his name right now. Dodgeball. Yeah, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. I'm on my last legs though, Captain Copile. I'm not even gonna attempt. Boom! Right in the face of me. That's great. This is cinema gold, like I say, but I won't even attempt. I feel like if I push him one more time, man, it's gonna be all over for me. I've gotten so many warnings and like, this is your last chance, ogres, that if you see, I don't play any music. I used to always start with a couple tunes. And what got me is what wouldn't get me a strike or even anything from them before. Suddenly, it's like I've used the song 10 times, and now it's banned in all countries because I used it. And I've looked back at those streams, and to the letter, every one of them, we were talking about something they just don't want people. Makes me think of Richard, I'm not a crook, Nixon, every time with the whole, well, we got to make marijuana illegal because those Jews and niggers will get together and smoke marijuana and read books.
Yep.
It's
and then we have an excuse to lock them up.
Yeah, smoke pot, read, like that's a bad thing too. But yes, then they got a reason to lock them up, and they can read books, but they can't smoke pot. Yep.
Shut down the dissidents.
Oh, Dick. Oh, Tricky Dicky. Oh, you got to give it to him. He was a real evil guy, and he seemed to be able to live with himself really, really well.
He was. What sucks is that he was a good politician, which made him an effective leader. But he's a fucking sociopath.
Right. Well, I don't think you kind of got to be a good politician. You kind of almost have to be a sociopath. Got no empathy, no feelings.
I don't think that's necessary. I think it is necessary that you're a narcissist. Because if you don't think you're right, then you don't belong in politics.
You can't sell it. Huh?
Yeah. If you're not convinced, you can't convince anybody else. So, but yeah, I guess that lends itself to sociopathy too.
But is any of you guys really convinced of what they think? I have the feeling they are only employees of the industry, and that is it. I mean, their whole behavior and what they are talking about is like, for me, it's like a typical middle management employee. I don't have the feeling that any of their own opinions are represented in any way. Just my opinion. I'm not talking especially about Trump or like politicians in general.
I didn't have him in mind when you were saying that.
Oh, Trump's the man. I always ask people that hate him now, well, did you hate him before? Inevitably, the answer is, well, of course I hated him before.
That I have thought very little of the man since the 80s.
No, nobody has, really, to be honest. I mean, The Apprentice. Look, so here, this is the thing, boys. I kind of want to get y'all's opinion on this. Has anybody been following the Mueller investigation thing? Apparently, they're going to be breaking out some indictments on Monday.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how that goes. I don't have near the confidence that anybody else seems to as to who is going to be indicted.
Me either. They're like throwing around Paul Manafort like that's definitely could be.
I think he's probably the most likely one to face an indictment, but I don't know that this would necessarily be his.
Really, more than Podesta or Wasserman Schultz,
anybody else.
Because remember when they went to go Slick Willie, they were going for Whitewater and whatnot, and they ended up with a dress with semen on it. Yeah. And so I mean, it might not have anything to do. That's the problem with these independent cops.
They ended up impeaching him for lying to Congress, and I'm not even sure which lie it was that they impeached him on, but it wasn't one of the good ones.
He said, "I've not had sex with that woman."
No, it was something he said to Congress, not that he said. That was a State of the Union or a.
Oh yeah, well I thought for sure that it was
related, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, it had to do with him saying he didn't get laid.
He got impeached for something that was such an inconsequential lie. I'm like, all right, you got him. He did lie to Congress. He did say that.
Yeah. Oh, hey boys, I had to get Zero in here. I just seen him in the chat. You beat the last 1-0. We just got to get some ideas on this, and even if we don't keep going on this vein, Zero's just always fun. What's up, Zero?
Knock, knock, Nukas.
Hey, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Yeah, but if you can dodge a wrench,
if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Whatever you say, Queerbait.
Patches O'Houlihan, you got it in the chat.
I was just watching that this morning.
I hope so.
Top 5 list of best. It's my top 5 best movies. Very funny, very funny. And
she's not a lesbian. All I know is that dyke can play.
Oh, so what we were doing, we were talking about this Mueller thing. Are you even paying attention to it at all?
Who?
Yeah, I think it's X-Files. They're looking for UFOs. Mulder. I think it's Mulder and Scully.
Scully and Mueller.
I don't pay attention to that bullshit. If I want to be any bigger of a loser than I already am, I'd watch that shit or pay attention to it.
Damn, I heard that. That ain't even really. That's the truth. I'm gearing up, boys. We can go anywhere you want, but I'm gearing up because you know what's going to happen for me for 3 days. Maybe not Friday, because when we go to Britishers on Friday, we really try to bring the fun and just to but for Monday and Wednesday, man, it's like, I don't know. Everybody else is talking about it, and I fall into that trap. So story number 1 will be Mulder and Scully, and story number 2 will be Mulder and Scully, and story number 3 will be the Fondler guy from Hollywood, and
I'm
Frankenstein.
I'm just waiting for 2 things to set people off like the pack of fucking sissies they are. I'm waiting for November 8th to come around, where apparently everybody's supposed to be going out and going, nah!
Oh, November 4th.
Whatever.
I was
screaming
looking at
to the sky, screaming to the sky like the sky's done anything. I mean, if you really want to get technical about it, why doesn't the sky yell at us for shooting off fireworks and shit?
It is a bit like a national day of prayer.
Shit. It's prayer, all right, that Hillary's not president and we ain't at war with Russia.
That's not what I'm talking about. That's not even a conversation I want to try to have, but but it is very much like a declaration of a day of prayer. It's a bunch of people screaming at the sky, or it's a bunch of people mumbling to the sky. The effect is the same, and it's granted.
Well, my point is the whole thing is just ludicrous.
One is culturally more obviously stupid than the other, but.
And the second thing I'm waiting for is when Trump releases all the JFK paperwork with all the people who are dead only, and the people who are alive cannot be named and all that shit, to see who starts having a fit about that shit. And all I'm going to do is like, oh, what's today? Oh, they released a so-called confidential files in JFK. Yeah, we already knew Magneto did it. We already knew a mutant was involved. Fuck you guys. Tell us shit that's not like 50 years old.
Well, look, one thing that's already come out is that they said we have to make it so that everybody believes Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. I don't even know the good that's coming from it, except FOIA is a thing and it needs to remain. We need to have the Freedom of Information Act, and here it goes. It's just too late. I mean, you know.
But you're old enough to remember when the Tower Commission report was finally released in the was that 89 or 90?
Yeah, I remember that as a kid, and I was like, who gives a shit?
Well, that at the time that was a big deal because there was a lot of reason for people to believe that the government was hiding shit because no one had seen any of that fucking report. And, you know, after the fact, we're like, oh, well, that's what we kind of thought had happened. And that's the same fucking thing with this bullshit.
And I jumped ahead on that. That's why I said I didn't give a shit, not because it was unimportant. It was kind of like, you guys are making a big deal out of shit that's already been done and over with for like how many years? And you guys didn't say jack shit back then?
30
Ooh. All right.
30 years? It's been almost.
And you know what I want to see is I want to see how many people get bent out of shape over realizing that JFK was not the hero they thought he was. And
yeah, but what do you mean by that?
Well,
what do you mean? Do you like poontang and stuff?
Yeah.
No, they put JFK on a pedestal for a lot of fucking reasons, and you know they release anything about and I think Six Hexenhammer said it best that there's going to be like another 10 years of new books and bullshit coming out of why this happened and all this other crap, rehashing all the old JFK stuff.
Sure, that's true.
And people are going to, and I said to myself, you know, people are going to find out about this shit, and then they're going to start either accepting it and realizing, oh yeah, that's one of the things that could have happened, or no, it didn't happen, and they're gonna stick to the guns. The older generation, oh, he was really a saint, and like, no, he wasn't a fucking saint. Don't even act like it. Stop putting people on pedestals, especially politicians, because it always blows up in your fucking face.
It doesn't do it.
I do have an interesting anecdote about Kennedy. Is that my grandmother hated Catholics, and her daughter married one, which is part of and that drove her up a fucking wall. But even she was a JFK fan, which I wasn't alive for JFK, but my dad has a lesser opinion than my grandmother, and were equal Republicans at the time when she died, and she was the one that had the favorable opinion. Just thought that was interesting. I don't know why.
The whole JFK thing is why people like him so much is because he looked good. Well, he has a relationship with Marilyn Monroe and all that. But if you have a look at the politics, I mean, what he did with Cuba was not exceptionally smart. And wasn't it Kennedy who started the Vietnam War? Wasn't it him?
Well, no, he didn't start. Yeah, he started involving.
Actually, a lot of the conspiracy comes from that he just wanted to allow consultants in there. That's the wrong word, but fuck, what was the word we used back then, boys? He just wanted to allow advisors, military advisors in there, and a police action. And man, it wasn't long after LBJ put his hand on the Bible in Air Force One that they started sending troops.
Well, see, there's your problem. LBJ was a real shitbird.
Yeah, warhawk from hell. But
I'm going to tell people that I solved the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I'm going to be put on a pedestal for the next 75 years, and everybody's going to like it.
Yeah, well, he also said that LBJ also said, if you just give me a chance, I'll give those N-words some entitlements right here and have them voting Democrat for the next 100 years. The guy was just an evil scumbag.
Oh, he's not
one
entirely
of the first
wrong
modern
now,
race baiters that was,
Yeah, but he wasn't entirely wrong now, was he?
Oh, that doesn't.
No, he wasn't wrong in that, but that was a wrong.
He was right about a lot of shit right up until he decided that he should go to war with Russia.
Yeah, exactly. Look at it how he handled the Cuba crisis with Russia. He said like,
but you know what has solved the Cuban Missile Crisis has been solved. That's a thing that's actually happened. Is that the telephone communication, that red phone thing, that came out of the Cuban Missile Crisis because it took so long for phone calls to get through switchboards and shit and security that the delays were. It's like when you tweet someone and you've said something kind of angry and sarcastic and they don't tweet back right away, and you think that the longer you get to stew, the more your juices swell into the idea that this fucker is even a bigger prick than you thought he was to begin with, and then his response is something really measured, and you're just that was the problem was you had a reactionary who had a history of being an effective military leader in Castro, and you had a reactionary who was disinclined to fuck with him, but had to show stones. And then there was this communication issue. I actually studied this in college. It was, sorry about my version of nerd speak, but that's where the emergency red phone came from, was so that phone calls from other heads of state would come right through a switchboard. Now that goes through an electronic switch, right to that phone.
Very riveting, Artemis, very simple. And let's all remember, if there's a lot of crosstalk, what I'll do is, instead of playing schoolmaster, I'll just cut Zero Cool loose on you, and he'll give the 25-minute long speech on crosstalk. So let's keep in mind that Weltschmerz Stories, his mic, I don't know, Weltschmerz, I got you cranked up. Do you remember the idea? I don't think he meant to cut you off either. Artemis is just,
I'm sorry.
He starts talking, and that's it.
Yeah, and I didn't.
What was that, Weltschmerz?
Oh, I'm not loud enough, or I can change it. Wait, is it better now?
It's a wee bit. I've got you cranked too. It may be a combination of Mike and you're a nice guy.
Yeah, I want to be polite and not like scream over another opinion or something.
Yeah,
so.
And I'm not saying that myself.
You have to scream other people's that we can hear you.
And I'm not saying that myself or Artemis are not nice guys. We just have a tendency to start talking and not stop. I just wanted to hear your idea, your input on that, if you still remember your idea.
Yeah, well, the thing that I really hate with the whole Cuba crisis is like, I mean, the Soviets did exactly the same what the United States did with Soviet Russia. I mean, they had like atomic rockets in Turkey at the Soviet border, and they tried or like had atomic rockets in Cuba. So that is exactly the same thing. And I understand that Kennedy was worried about it. That is not a question. But saying like, you either back off or we start shooting at you, that is a response that is not at all reasonable.
It's childish for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, it's like saying, I'm going to throw a rock at you.
And in my opinion, it was Kennedy who risked to have a third world war, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, were you laughing at Angela Merkel?
Yeah.
I love that picture. When I hear a German accent, I can't help but pop it on.
Well, it's just there's so much about that makes me laugh.
We'll go with something different for a change.
It actually has more to do with the composition of it than the message of it. I don't give a shit about the message. That's not my battle to fight, but it was just how red everything was, and then how kind of orange her face was. Yeah.
Well, I can't. You know what? It's just it stands alone. I think it's funny. I can't remember who I stole this meme from, but when I seen it, I was like, oh, that's funny.
I don't remember. Does the painting look like that? It doesn't.
I don't know. The painting of Hitler, yeah, they pretty much didn't.
Well, that's what I mean. Are the colors in Hitler's face like pop out like that?
Oh Lord, I don't know. I'm not too much into Nazi shit. My Jewish grandmother would be crying in heaven.
I am also German.
Yeah,
and an
that's wonderful. So. That's good, and I love Germans. I don't have any problem with them. Salt of the earth people. I actually think that World War II and we've got the Germans have been made to feel so terrible that it seems to me that they've almost been cucked by the world. And in some ways, I hope that Germany does something one day, maybe just tries to take over the world one more time. Third time pays for all.
Oh, please don't. No.
Of course. Don't you know anything
that's what
about
I mean. And look, Zero, as soon as I said that, the first person to pipe up and say, oh, no, is a German. They've got you. The world has got you folks, man, in a lot of ways. And it's like,
that's not a bad thing. I mean, to rethink this whole damage we did is not the worst thing we can do, I think.
Well, I was just watching a thing last night, in the way that we fight wars now on the ground, having an M60 gunner, some machine guns backed up by submachine guns, and we took pages out of your playbook. The Germans revolutionized modern warfare to the point where we haven't made a whole lot of changes in the way we run ground wars. We still use those same German tactics, man, that work so well. And let's face it, if you want a good car, if you want a sound firearm, if you want something mechanical that has moving parts in it, and you want it to be the best it could be, 9 times out of 10, it's going to have a German name on it.
I disagree.
That's cool. We can all have our own opinions. That's my opinion. I love German stuff.
I do too, but German stuff, when it breaks, is really expensive and to fix. The parts are expensive and the labor is intensive. The Japanese stuff is as good and so much easier and cheaper to work on.
Yeah, I can't take away from that. The Japs are pretty good about stuff. But we got to go. No, I said Japs. I'm going to get them hate mail now. What I mean, too, is...
oh, you know what? If I really wanted to start some shit, I would start throwing out some propaganda from the old 1940s, which is technically part of America. You go ahead and you slap a Jap all you want, and I'll go and do something else, and then damn Ruskies and all that other Cold War bullshit.
Ogre and I grew up with don't buy Jap crap.
Yes, we did.
Crap.
Jap junk. Jap junk. It's like I thought that Jap junk was the only way to say stuff from it, because that's all the old man said. Yeah, I want that Jap junk. That referred to anything that was garbage. It might not even have been Japanese.
I saw an almost brand new gas station that somebody had scrawled "Don't buy Jap crap" on it in 2000. Like,
are you shitting me?
And I was like, "That's
the Midwest, brother." He ain't shitting.
I think you mean China, motherfucker.
And I know.
Yeah, I know. They're aiming at the wrong. They're aiming at the wrong country.
Yeah, you're talking about the wrong Asians.
Hero. We actually were in a war with them in the 80s, man. Like, because they're selling that Honda Civic. I remember being in the Honda motorcycle shop in 1980, and my old man going up to a yellow Honda Civic, and we were in the motorcycle. They didn't even have car shops yet, and like rocking it and laughing and going, y'all boys believe this Jap junk they think they're going to sell it. 4 years later, there was a fucking Honda Civic in every driveway, and you couldn't sell a Chevy, man.
They were such good fucking cars. And then Chevy decides, all right, we got to jump on this. So they made the Chevette.
Oh, and what a piece of garbage. What a piece of junk. That was the biggest piece of junk. Yeah, and my mom had a Civic. It's funny, I'm telling you, when my mom bought that used car, when my dad bought it for her, I didn't say a word because I've already mentioned about my old man. You just didn't say certain things to him. But what was going through my head is, yeah, Dad, 6 years ago, you were rocking the same make and model, mocking it. But that little car got 42 miles a gallon. It would do 135 miles an hour easy if you wanted it to. 5-speed standard transmission, and it ran forever.
Well, do you remember what they said in Die Hard, where Joseph Takagi says to John McClane, he says, "Hey, we're flexible. Pearl Harbor didn't work out, so we got you with tape decks."
That's it, man. That's the way it is too. They got us with tape decks and cameras, Nikons.
Sony got us with the VHS.
Took us out. Well, I just keep looking. Oh, it's 420, boys. You don't know what that means.
The interesting thing is that the best selling, in terms of export, the most exported car from America is a BMW, and that is very strange for me. So it proves Americans can build cars. So that is not the problem. The engineering.
Wait a minute, isn't a BMW German?
Pardon me?
Yeah, BMW is supposed to be from Germany, right?
Yeah, but it's manufactured. The X models are manufactured in the United States, and
I think in Ohio. But here's the problem.
Cars.
What's your mistake? Okay, who is in control of quality control in that BMW factory stories?
Americans, regular Americans.
Who puts them there? Who gives them the standards that they must abide by? Germans.
Yeah, but
if you want to make, I think, oh man, at the height, I'm telling you, just watching last night, I believe we were producing over 1 million rifles a month at our peak. At our peak, we produced more rifles in 1 month than the Germans did the MP-38 and the MP-40 combined for the whole war. But the individual quality, and it's still, I mean, if we transpose that now on the automotive industry, well, we can say what we want, but all Hondas are made in Ohio that I know of. They got a huge factory in Toledo, and in fact in Indiana, they're made in the Midwest anyway.
Yeah, Ohio.
there is a Japanese guy that comes once a month and makes sure that the quality control guys are still abiding by the Japanese standards. If you let Americans cut loose, the workers, give them $35 an hour and tell them they only have to work 8 hours a day, man, you got to have somebody watch
nothing
them.
Would get done. Nothing would get done.
No, you got to have somebody watch
nothing would get done. It'd be fucked up because they would let their labor unions run everything over and decimate what little actual work they have, just like they did with the school system and what happened in Detroit. That's a prime example of why you don't let Americans run shit over.
I was just going to say that I'm pretty sure the BMW factory is a UAW shop. BMW, UAW. Yeah, I said that right.
It makes me a little sick. You're probably right.
My dad is one of those. I mean, we're fucking 120 miles from Detroit. So my dad was one of those. We're buying Buick. We're buying Buicks. We're always going to buy Buicks. And then mom talked him into buying a Cadillac. And they got old, and I moved back to Fort Wayne, and I'm a Subaru fan because they run for fucking ever. They're safe as fuck. And if I had the money to spend, I would buy a new Subaru. And my parents had the money to spend, so I insisted that they buy a new Subaru. And my dad, now granted, my dad is losing his mind. And it
happens.
Mentioned it before. He's no longer completely with us, but he was really cool with the idea of buying a Subaru when he thought it was from one of those Scandinavian countries. And when I told him that they're all of them are made in Indiana, in Lafayette, but it's a Japanese company. His immediate reaction was, like that.
But you can't blame him, man. Your dad remembers World War II. He might not have fought it, but he was young enough.
No, he's 75. He's a boomer.
So 75. If I take over,
he's born at 40 something.
Right? He was just a baby when it was going on.
He can't be a boomer because my dad's 70. He can't be a boomer because my dad's 77 and my mom's 75, and they're both from the silent generation.
That's the one before? I thought it was the Greatest Generation.
No, the Greatest Generation and the GI Generation came before. No, that's my bad. Either way, they're not boomers. They weren't. He's not a boomer. I can tell you that because he's too old.
A boomer is 60s.
No, a boomer is literally babies.
Literally 1945.
Okay, five. It goes by five. So 45, 55. So 45 to 65 would have been the silent. And then 65.
No, that would have been baby boomers. Yeah,
baby
boomers.
Yeah, okay, seriously. We're not going to break down generations into individuals.
Anyway.
Holy shit, I'm almost going to look it up, and this is like the least important thing I've ever talked about. When does the X
generation become the Y generation, and when do they become millennials? Let's not do that.
Yeah. Anyway, it's about the car. And your dad's just like,
Yeah.
But it's made
my dad is concerned. He's not concerned if it's a European company. He's suddenly concerned if it's a Japanese country. Even though it's every Subaru in this country is made in Indiana. They all come out of the same fucking factory. How does he feel about shit made in
China then?
My dad is losing his mind. I don't talk to him about shit. I go over to my parents' house. My mom comes down from upstairs. There's nothing up there except for a sewing room where she makes quilts and shit. And the reason that room even fucking exists in their brand new condo is because she needed a place to get away from my dad so he could watch Fox News and yell at the TV all day.
You know what? You just described my parents in that one way, except my mom don't make quilts, but it's what my dad does is watch. That's funny. Is that just that? Anyway.
My dad will yell at ESPN. I'm like, what the fuck? It's
ESPN. They probably deserve it.
Well,
look, really quickly, gentlemen, just for myself and all the other OCD folks out there, GI Generation, 1901 to 1926. Mature or Silence, 1927 and
1945.
Wait, go back to the first one.
Mm-hmm. GI Generation.
So this in a generation is 25 years. Okay.
It's 20-year span, isn't it? I mean, I don't know why it's like that, but I guess it's a 25-year span, whatever it is. Seems like it changes because this is, not
again, like I was saying.
Yeah, it's a 45, and then boomers would be. This would be close enough. 46 to 64. So 64 would be the start of Generation X. 65 to 1980. See, I've also heard it is. You're right, man, because I've heard so many times that it went to 84 or something like that. Yeah. I don't. So this is all up for grabs.
The point is, just tell his dad. Do not tell his dad about Japanese cars, and where everybody's happy.
Yeah, that was the point.
That's all that counts.
Yeah,
for all you OCD people out there, fuck you and me too. We're not going to find out today.
That's why I said, well, how does he feel about shit being made in China? He's like, you know what? He's losing his mind. He yells at Fox and ESPN. I'm like, well, sure. Okay, why not?
Yeah,
I yell at Fox and ESPN all the time when I'm not yelling at CNN. If I really feel like giving myself a heart attack at such a young age.
I had my first at 41, so don't push it.
But the thing I don't understand is, I mean, if we are talking Subaru or if we're talking BMW, I mean, the American workers, they can do it.
Yeah.
And the companies are fucked by middle and upper management.
No, I tried to explain to you, man. You got to, and right away, I think it was Zero. Somebody jumped on. It's true, man. Here in the United States, in Germany, if you tell a man, look, we're going to work you 6 hours a day. We're going to pay you a very good living wage. And in the middle of that 6-hour day, we're going to give you an hour break and provide you with a lunch. And you can have a cold beer with your boss. Man, those fucking Germans will show up. And for them 6 hours that they're working, they will give you, the best job necessary, without very little supervision. I don't know why. I'm not trying to be racist. I'm just saying the way it is. Here in America, you tell these people, we're going to give you $35 an hour, very good working wage. We're going to cut you loose in this factory. We want you to work 8 hours. You got it. But all these, they are going to need so much supervision. And then you throw a union in the mix that gives them the right to lay down and do damn nothing. Look, man, my old man, I used to go in the V8 plant 2-3 times a week, man. We'd go visit my dad's old buddies. And then when he worked there, I went there anyway, I mean, I've seen what happens. And something about the American auto worker, maybe, I don't want to put everybody in this category. And I can feel the hate right now vibrating throughout the interwebs because, you know, I said something bad, but I'm not saying anything bad about the American worker. I'm just saying there's something a little different. We love freedom. And I guess freedom is the freedom to not work quite as hard as you would if you were being watched well. That's it. I'll leave it at that.
I wouldn't say that Americans work less harder. They work differently. I mean, the description that you had, like, okay, when a German has like a 6 or 8 hour shift, then he's working really hard during that time and he's doing nothing else. He's not checking his emails or whatever. While Americans, they check their emails, they surf the internet, whatever, but they don't work 8 hours. They work 12. You know, that is a whole different attitude.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that they work less.
I want to make, I got to say something too. I'm throwing a blanket statement over something, but let me backpedal just a tiny bit and say, in my experience, the workers that were a product of the 70s and 80s around a city called Flint, Michigan, they needed supervision. That's all I'm going to say. I want to add this to it. It'll take me 1 minute. The American entrepreneur is second to none. When you put an American in the position saying you are now working for yourself, I don't care if they're washing windows or if they have a tech company making $1 billion a year. If you put them in that position, I don't believe we can be outdone by anybody. But there's something inside the American worker, not all, that's everything, that is just a wee bit more inclined to be supervised. That's all I'm saying. I'm going to leave it at that before I dig a hole so deep Captain Colepile is going to have to bury me with his backhoe or whatever it is, his skid loader.
I wanted to say, but right before you said that, was that I think that Americans are very innovative by nature. And I think that comes from the same attitude that you're describing in a factory. Where there's got to be an easier way, and I'll find it. And the guys that we're missing now, no, I say guys because that's what it was, but the people that we need that we're missing are like the guys the tool makers, the tool and die guys. Those are the people that we don't have as many of, because now we have 3D printers that work with all kinds of metals, and we can design shit with computers, and all that's great, and nerds need jobs too. But it's a matter of, you know, it's always been about making it easier, and that's where the innovation comes from. And if we can't make it easier, can we make it better? And if we can't make it better, can we make it cheaper and just as good? And I think it's the same fucking attitude that drives all of that. There's an up and a down to the attitude, obviously, and think we've kind of shown both sides of it, but the innovation is driven by the need. We're beyond the need to have things. Now we've gotten to the point where it's all about making it easier, and that's been most of what's driven the industrial age. Is what can we do to make all of this that we actually feel like we have to do easier? And Americans are great at that because we identify it really readily for some reason. But otherwise, I absolutely agree that given our druthers, middle management is no better or worse than any guy working a shop floor. They're trying to get by on as little work that they have to do as possible too. So,
yeah. That's why they get so mad when you're fucking off, because they actually got to do something.
Well, it's why they sign those fucking contracts that everybody bitches about with labor unions. They're getting something out of it, and if it's not the effort from the employees, then it's got to be less work for them, because otherwise, why the fuck would they sign that? They signed those contracts.
Oh, my zero button, my O button is acting so funny.
Your ogre button?
My O, it's acting so funny. It just won't work, and then whenever it does work, it just keeps going. It's sticking. That's bumming me out. I love this. I really love this keyboard that came with the computer. I'm not a touch typer, and a lot of the times I have these off in here, and even during the day, which it is right now, back in this room, it's dark. With the lights off the keyboard, I can't see it. You know what? It's one of those things I always told myself I was going to do, and I never just sat down and learned to touch type. If I ever lost my sight, I'd really be in trouble as far as typing goes.
To your credit, even if you could touch type, if your keyboard, this keyboard doesn't have it, my old keyboard does, if it bumps on the D and the K keys, if you don't have that, have the lights on, or if you don't have the lights on, you're not going to be able to type whether you know how to touch type or not, because you don't know which keys your fingers are.
F and J, by the way, but it's those are your home keys. F and J are your. And you know what? If I don't think about it, I can look up and keep going, because in reality, I'm touch typing. I have my eyes down here as a backup. I can type pretty quickly. My sister, man, she could type on a old Underwood. She could hit 100 words a minute, 90 words a minute. You boom, when you hit the shift, you're shifting that thing, man.
I thought you were gonna say with a carriage return. I'm like, fuck, I haven't used one of those since I was a kid.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about, like an Underwood that came, it had
the mechanical where you have to slide it across, and
that's what I'm talking about. Where
not where you hit it, not where you hit an enter button, but where you actually have to grab a lever and slide the whole carriage.
That's what he's talking about.
I'm telling you.
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about hitting an enter button.
Yeah, when you get so far, it goes ding, because a little arm rings a bell, ding. I think her Underwood was made in like 1905, 1910. Old school ribbon.
Yeah, we had a Royal. I had a Royal in college, dude. But I had the automatic carriage return.
I would once in a while attempt to type something. In fact, I had to type stuff for class before the word processor was relevant. My mom was a nurse, and she's done the medical transcripting for a while. So she had a word processor, before people had word processors.
I knew one guy in college that had one.
That was amazing to me. We're doing this right now, right? We're just sitting here chilling, doing this fucking I was trying to just spit it out, doing this Stanley Kubrick style 2001 Space Odyssey talk on, from all worldwide right here. And I can remember a time when a word processor, spinach green on a black screen, was the most amazing thing in the world.
Yeah, because you could edit it before you printed it.
Yeah, it wasn't just the finger of God on paper.
I didn't even have I didn't have a basic typewriter, but I didn't have a great typewriter. Mine had correction ribbon on it, where it would beep at me if I misspelled a word.
Man, my mom
gave me time to go back, and I could hit correct as many letters as I needed to get back to the letter that needed to be fixed. And then, because I'm a fucking broke ass college student who spent more money on beer than anything else, I would rewind my ribbon so that the correction tape, I could get like 3 or 4 spins out of it before I had to actually buy a new one. And by the time I was done, that shit was clear.
Oh, well, I remember.
That is kind of something that people need to work on more these days, is actually their typing skills, because people are wanting to pull away from actually writing stuff by hand so much that they need to learn how to have typing skills. For me in high school, it was optional because we weren't using computers full blown out like they do these days, the freaking sissies. We actually had to do shit by hand. We had to learn print and we had to learn cursive. And I'm not trashing the fact that people are using computers more these days, but like if you're going to be doing that, if everything's going to be touch screen, you still have to know how to type X amount of words per minute. Otherwise, you're not going to be like, I don't know what I'm doing. Well, you know what? That's too damn bad, because society is making it to the point where we don't use handwriting anymore.
How many words a minute do you do, Zero? It's got to be up there, man. You can fucking type.
85.
It seems like more. It's just because even the people, like the Britisher's pretty quick. He's about as fast as me, but when you want to, dude, you just put up paragraphs like bam, 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 bam. You can roll with it. You can do it.
But my point is, I have a nephew who he's thinking about going in to become an electrician. I said, you need to learn, if you're going to do that, you're going to need to learn shorthand. What's that? I'm like, because you're going to hire somebody to do all the actual typing and the computer work and everything. Is you've got to learn how to do shorthand so that when you make an order out or an order form out, it's done, it's clean, it's easy to see, and it's legible, so that when the person who is your customer reads it, they can understand it. And when your secretary or whoever, oh, I can't use secretary, fuck you, it's the secretary, not an assistant. When they start filing stuff, they need to be able to read it and put it in order, so that when they transfer it over to an actual computer log, they know what every word means, so that when they write it out long form, they can type X amount of words per minute, have it done very short time in case you get pressed for time between jobs. But that's something that kids need to learn these days, is how to actually type at least 90 words per minute.
You write shorthand? You can do the cursive upside down L's and right side with just the R. You can write shorthand?
Yeah, I learned. That's how I learned. I never learned on a computer.
I've never heard anybody say that you should learn that if you're an electrician. But man, my sister's an executive assistant. Well,
most people,
secretary.
Most people when they're electricians, like if they don't carry around a computer, they don't carry around all this technical shit, because
no, I get it. Who still uses shorthand these days?
Smart people who need to write.
You got to be smart to use that.
People who write ledgers, people who write, bills that give people, here's your oh shit, I lost my train of thought.
If you're listening in the chat, press 1 if you even know what the hell we're talking about by shorthand.
When
you
press
give a person
2 if you can write in shorthand. I'll be shocked if anybody.
My mom can, but
when you give somebody a bill, when you give somebody an invoice, it has to be in shorthand, because it has to be done quick, to the point, and legible. You can't just dot this, dot that, dot this. You actually have to write out your company name if necessary. If you don't have it on the header, you got to write out what you're doing. You have to write out how much it's going to cost. You have to write out this, and you have to make it legible for tax purposes.
Well, I got to say, that shows what I would have, because I would have lost this bet. For one thing, everybody at least knows what shorthand is. I kind of more or less expected that. Susie Monkey put a 2. That means she knows what it is and can write it. The only people I know that can write it is my mom and my sister. And in that era, like when I was very young, 7, 8 years old, most of the girl, and I don't mean to say anything bad about you, Zero, because let me just say it all the way out. Most of the girls knew how, and the really smart, I mean the 1% dudes that were obviously going to be the world shakers, they could too. But this man, I remember my sister sitting there going, and she was just learning like by love. It's all about the way it sounds. Yeah. And that is incredible to me.
The reason I had to learn how to do that is because my mom started a few businesses when she was younger. When I was a kid, so they didn't have computers. They barely even had typewriters sometime, and they had to do all the long forms and triplicate. So they had to learn how to do shorthand, longhand, all that fun shit, like police do these days when they've actually got to write out a arrest report before they put it into a computer. And so I had to learn that anyway. And I said, well, I might as well. But when I was 16, my first job at a Subway sandwich place in Upper Iowa, we had to take orders. We had to actually write it down like you would see at the A&W waitresses coming out to your car and all that shit. You got to know shorthand. You have to know your own. You got to know all that shit, and then they've got the person behind the counter. Oh, you want a meatball sub with extra Parmesan and all this? They got to be able to read that shit. Nowadays, it's this button over here, and then, okay, and they print out a ticket. We didn't have that shit back then.
Yeah.
And a lot of electricians, you know, especially if you're independent, a lot of independent business people, they don't have the money to get all that kind of shit where it's press a button, press a button, press a button, print an invoice. They have to write all that shit by hand. So they've got to know that stuff. But my point is, kids should know that. And on top of that, they should know how to at least type 90 words per minute by the time they're in high school. Because if everything's going to keep going more towards where you're using keyboards and touch screens and all that shit, and people use text talk all the time. It's like, are you fundamentally stupid that you don't know how to write a word out fully, that you have to use text speak? It's slang. It's basically, it's like, oh, you don't know how to write a whole sentence. Well, you know, I'm using LOL. Okay, LOL is fine. Oh my God, you know, OFMG and all that fun stuff. That's fine. But when you're actually typing shit out in a letter, which is why people are required, which it's not okay, which is why people go to English 1 and composition 1 and 2. They'll let you type on a computer all you want, but you know have to have a format. You have to know the sentence structure. You basically would have to know all the shit that you would do if it was longhand, shorthand, cursive, and all that shit, except on a computer. And you don't use LOL.
No, it's that kind of shorthand is never accepted. And when I was in school, maybe it will change one day. But in English 112 and 211, or 111 and 212, there's no way. If I'd have walked into Mrs. Bird's class and been like, typed in, handed a paper that said OMG, LOL, or IMO, in my opinion, or anything like that.
Opinion. And there are people that, you know, like, and I understand why people have that kind of stuff on text messages, because let's face it, with Twitter, it's 100. It's with Twitter, for an example, that's more old school text messaging, 140 characters. You're trying to get a very important point across. Nowadays, with text messaging, you can literally write paragraphs, and it'll be X amount. It'll be 160 characters at minimum these days per text, but you're still getting charged for it. But you can write out whole entire freaking paragraphs about a whole entire story and send it, and people will get it, and they can understand what you're talking about. You don't have to use text speak. Texting speech, you know, you don't have to use texting type or any of the shortcut bullshit, which is why it's always a fun challenge on Twitter when you're trying to tell somebody off. This is why people use GIFs, they use memes, they use images, or they use a link to a video or something, because you can't express your satisfaction or dissatisfaction about a subject on Twitter in under 140 characters. And if you can, you're really skilled at it, and you know how to do shorthand for Twitter. Good for you, but most people are not fundamentally smart enough to realize how to do that.
Hey, Stories, what's the rules on the thing that you were talking about in the pre-chat on the what's coming up with you and somebody that I see in the chat? What's the rules? Can we talk about
it? What's the rules? I have to leave now because we have an appointment for 10 o'clock. It's 15 minutes before, so. Yeah,
no, I mean, that's great, and I kind of wanted to draw your attention.
Please don't talk about it right now, but because we're not sure if we publish it or not, and so
soon let me know as soon as it's a go with whoever it may be that may be doing something or not doing whatever, and let me know, and I'll let people hear at least from this end what's going on.
Ogre. Yeah. I've also been invited to the stream that I thought was going to.
Yeah, rock and roll.
Artemis, give me a second. I just want to say thank you for inviting me. It was a nice chat, and I'm out for the evening. Have a nice evening, guys.
You too.
You'll always be welcome around here. Your opinion is valued, whether or not I agree with it. I really enjoy your delivery. You're one of the most polite gentlemen I know, maybe second only to the Britisher. Thanks for being by.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yeah, no worries, Artemis. Anytime you got to split, take off, man. Let me know. You're going to be on a live stream tonight?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we're
going to deal, so I know where it's going to be. I'll swing by and I'll tune in.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be live or not, but I'll let you know if it is.
Oh, okay, right. Well, that was what was going on there. And like I said, I'm not even going to tempt myself now that he's gone, but he's doing something. And as time drags on, soldiers forward, we'll figure out what that was going to be.
Yeah, I want to know what that was too, because if it's coming up in your chat, I feel like it ought to be fair game. But that he's got his reasons for dealing with shit the way he's dealing with it, so I'm gonna let it go.
Oh, with him, he ain't doing it in my chat. There's somebody in the chat that I think is going to do a project with him.
I thought
you heard all about it in the pre-chat. I think
I did.
It don't matter anyway. We're not allowed to.
I jumped in as you guys were closing, and I just sat silently.
Yeah, well, it's not even a big deal. We'll all find out. It's not like some giant mystery. And maybe if it is a small mystery, it'll kind of make it cooler You know, people will tune in if something ever comes from it.
This was a lot of fun for me because both of you guys are guys that you know, I can't and am consider us friends, but there aren't a lot of things that we necessarily agree upon. We just agree upon the tone in which they're presented to us.
Yeah.
And I love that about both of you. So it was really cool for me to be on with the two of you. But I am going to bail with him, and I think, like him, I thank you very much. It's always
that's good, because I kind of got a couple questions for Zero that are absolutely like Zero kind of questions, and he might want to ramble for a minute on it.
Right on.
I sure appreciate that, Artemis. I look at you and Zero Cool especially as my two American weekenders, because I mean, the British guys I'm with, it's always like, really, Mr. Ogre, we have you on with us, sir. One more American is more than we can take. And they gang up on me. And they're always having like Oozaloo and fucking Academic Agent and everybody else, you know, sorry, whoever.
It was back to the land of the uncivilized American, whatchamacallit.
They really see us that way. No joke. They really do.
Stop
they really see us as kind of a lower class of British.
Yeah, see how well they're doing, huh?
Well, that's what I kind of think sometimes. But thanks a lot for coming by, Artemis. I sure appreciate it. If that thing's going live, let me know.
I will, man. Take care.
I'll pep it out.
Fuck the Welsh.
Zero, I've seen in the news, and like I said, maybe you'll want to ramble on this, maybe not. But no, it's a good thing. Comic books that this was the story basically. It was like, well, for those of you that noticed that, you know, Action Comics #1 went for $500 in 1978, and then for blah blah blah, now it's up to 800,000, and so you started investing in comic books in the 90s, but the quality went way down and the production went way up, and so we're stuck with tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of comic books. Therefore, any ones that you have now from that era are basically useless. The idea of getting a DC, what was that, 25 or whatever, Batman's first, or you know, Action #1 is not going to happen, and you might as well not collect them in the future. I mean, I have an opinion on that myself, but I think
I'm always for, if people want to collect comics, just go buy the goddamn trade paperback novels, graphic novels. Save yourself some fucking time. Keep them for your own enjoyment. Don't do this bullshit of, oh, I'm going to buy this comic and then I'm going to make sure that I get X amount of dollars out of it in the long run. No, there's no point, because it's like my father said. The only time that anything is worth anything of any value is if you find somebody willing to pay the price for it.
Right.
And the whole thing about the 1990s is they failed. What was his name? SF Debris on YouTube. That's technically SF Debris. That's one word. He did a very good whole thing about the 1990s experience and why it almost trashed the entire comic book genre, because there were people that were running it strictly as a business and making money off of certain things. And it's not because of the comics rarity due to a Second World War and the scarcity of paper and materials. And personally, I don't give a shit about collecting comics. I love stories. I love characters. I love ideas and about characters and stories across the board. It's just something I grew up with. But if you really feel like buying comic books, buy the trade paper, the trade paperback or the graphic novels, and keep them, because there's something strictly for you. You'll pay your, you know, 15 or 20 bucks or whatever, you get like easily 10 to 15 issues condensed into a single volume, depending on the series. And you can read it whenever you want, and it takes up very little space depending on how big the book is. And it's just easier to deal with instead of all the bullshit from the 1990s, which was, I knew it was a crock back then, and I know it's a crock now near, let me see, 10, 15 years later.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot less advertisements in them too when you get the trades.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the point. When you used to buy a comic book back in the 80s, it was actually you would get 26 pages, give or take. I'm just spitballing here. But if, let's say, you got 25 pages, you were maybe getting 3 or 4 pages out of advertisements. So you still had 21 pages of material to read, not including the front and back cover. Nowadays, it's, say, 25 pages, and you're only getting 15 pages of comic.
Yeah. Why
the fuck do I want all those advertisements that I don't give a shit about?
Yeah. Well, this one's from 1976, a Thor,
right?
30-cent comic, and you got 1, 2, 3, 4 straight pages of advertisement in the middle, a 4-pager, you know, they call them middle spread, whatever. Yep. And I mean, there's so much advertising, and even the old schools, and just one comic, it's sometimes a little bit unbelievable. I obviously flipped through it, but it does add up in space. Yeah,
it does. And some of the good things about advertisement is not all, sometimes, and it used to be this way, it was not always about old, you know, shit you didn't want to buy, but it was like, oh, so we have this comic over here which you're reading. Hey, I want to let you know we're putting in a page here that we've got this new series coming out, or this is happening over in a book over here. And they would cross promote series, and it's like, oh, or this continue. You know, you start this book here and it continues over in this one because that's just the way they have it planned out. That's what they did too. But a lot of 99% of the times, it's, you know, you have 25 pages and now you're down to 15 pages of reading material, and you got about 10 pages or so of advertisement. You don't want that shit, which is why I say to people, buy the damn graphic novels. They're not, in the long run, it really doesn't matter. You can if you got all this money to invest in shit like that, you not only fucking need therapy and help, but you need a fucking life. Comic books are good and all. Reading is good and all. I have no problems with that. I think people should be able to read across the board anything that suits their palate. Great, but don't put this shit in investment like it's fucking gold, silver, platinum, or diamonds, because that ain't gonna ever be a thing.
No, well, probably not. I would say that when people say things like, "Oh, forget about them, they made so many." As far as the '90s things that I've accumulated, I'm going to keep them. But I shared some pictures on Twitter just the other day. I don't know. I'm probably not going to pull them up right now. But the King, he has the largest collection of late '70s and all through '80s toys and comic books and you name it, cups, promotional things from Wendy's, McDonald's, you name it. He's got a tremendous guy. He has this collection of cups that they gave away. I believe it was Burger King. I'd have to look at them and make sure. They end up being $1,500 a piece. Yeah, and some of them more, because I mean, anyway, the point is, I don't know if the time of that is over. As far as the King goes, he's not selling his collection. It could be worth, I don't know, it's not worth this number, but it could be worth $5 million and he wouldn't sell it. It's worth $500,000 if it's worth a penny, but he wouldn't get rid of it. And you do have people, but I would say if you enjoy it, like you eloquently put, don't have a life in other ways and are willing to pour the energy in it, yeah, you know, go for it. Collect butterflies if you want. Whatever it is that makes you happy, as long as your other chores are done, so to speak, I guess. And
well, there's nothing wrong with having a hobby. Hobbies are fine. It's when people, it's like when people, and people do video gamers, actual gamers. These people are fucking insane. They will go out and buy. Well, let's just put it this way. In the 1990s, X-Men rebooted itself, and it came out with X-Men #1. And it had 5 different covers, and it was the same story inside. Okay, who gives a shit? Because later, the joke was on people later on, because they made a deluxe edition with the same story, and it was a gatefold cover, and you could see the whole thing pulling out the gatefold, you know, without having to buy the 5 individual comics of different parts of the cover. Who gives a shit? Well, it's like with video game collectors. Let's say they buy a copy of Final Fantasy VII. Okay, well then, oh no, here's a better example, because they've actually done this shit 3 times already. The Final Fantasy X came out. Then Final Fantasy X2 came out for the PlayStation 2. Then they re-released the Master Edition of Final Fantasy X for the PlayStation 3. Then they brought it out for the PlayStation 4. It's like, okay, guys, seriously, how much money do you have to waste on this shit? And say, well, look at this massively huge collection I've got. Well, there are people like James Rolfe, Pat Contry, Norman Caruso, Alpha Omega Sin. These guys collect, but they had been collecting since they were kids. They're not the type of people that just go out and waste money and collect shit for fucking fun like people did in the 90s, thinking that they're going to get some investment on it. These guys that I just named are hardcore collectors because they genuinely love video games. And they had been collecting for over 20+ years. There's a difference. They've invested in games that they still play. They invested in games that they still talk about, that they still do reviews on. And they know, and these guys all are realistic enough to know that one day, maybe many years from now, maybe a week from now, who knows, they're going to say, you know, this is great. I'm glad I had this stuff and I have my memories of it, but I need to sell this because reasons, or it takes up too much space, or I don't want it anymore, blah, blah, blah. And they're not going to ask the sun and the moon for it. Right. They're going to say, this is part of my collection. I've got too much shit. I don't have enough. And they're realistic. But those guys have been collecting for well over 20 some years, as opposed to people in the 1990s when they started buying 5 different copies of X-Men only because of the single cover. Well, as I've said, SF Debris, go look him up, and it's about the comics industries in the 1990s, explains why it about failed then, and it's about ready to go fall on the sword again with all the way that they're running shit these days. I say to you, just buy graphic novels, enjoy your books, pass them on to your kids, and it has sentimental value. End of story.
Well, and what I would say is that it's kind of the amazing story effect, amazing stories effect. Harry Anderson, I believe, was the actor that starred in one of Spielberg's famous little, amazing stories.
That was Mark Hamill.
Was it Mark Hamill? Okay, right. So you know what I'm talking about, where he was, his mom told him, you don't save this stuff, and he saved it, and then, of course, he's homeless.
And then he sold all of his shit and became a multimillionaire.
Yeah, multimillionaire. Because
that was Mark Hamill.
So that kind of pressed that agenda. That idea, and it made it kind of like the gold on the streets of San Francisco, or it's gold on the streets of Sacramento, I should have said.
Right.
When there really was, you got to dig for that. There's nothing that lays on the streets. And then people started to make its own wave. I still think that, like I said, collect what you want. Hopefully, it brings you pleasure. I don't believe that joy ever comes from what you just said. Like you said, if you're collecting it thinking that, oh, I'm gonna keep this and one day I'm gonna get a 500% or whatever percent return on my money, you're in it for the wrong reason. Go play the stock market. Go to a bloody casino. I mean, that could be cool.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. That episode you were just talking about is called "Gather Ye Acorns," and Mark Hamill is the character, and he plays a guy named Jonathan Quick, who basically takes an ancient tree troll's advice to pack up his treasure comic books and collection, and about 50 years later, he sells all of his stuff after being homeless for the longest time and becomes a multimillionaire. Now, the thing about that is that those type of materials that his character was saving were from that generation where everything was basically being like, oh, it's okay, you read your Captain America comic book. Well, guess what? We have to take it back in and recycle it and do all this stuff for the war effort. They weren't things of prevalent nature as they are today, to where they can, video games can last easily 50 years on a shelf life if they're not played, because everything degrades over time, which is why we change formats and everything else and all this fun other shit. But that's kind of the point.
Number one, something keeps like, I'm not sure if it's me or you, but maybe it's you. If I'm the only one here, and it tell me in the chat. If not, I kind of want to see if I can get everybody to play a little game. Ask a farm boy. I have a question. Ask a question 2 farm boys. Well, yeah, I almost don't qualify because I grew up in the hills, and what they farmed was horses.
Right. So let me just finish off. So basically, after all my long rambling is, I agree with you, Ogre. Collect what you like, get enjoyment out of it, but realize it's not the be all end all, and it's not really something that you should secure a future on, because in the long run, it just ain't gonna fucking matter.
No, in the long run, it ain't gonna matter. We can't leave nothing behind anyway. Might leave something for your children a little bit here and there, but maybe I can get the chat in on this. You ever wonder what a Midwestern boy that kind of grew up on a farm and somewhere in Iowa or Idaho or wherever, and around the Quad Cities, maybe. You ever think what advice he may give you on like homosexuality, LGBTQ, or just
are you talking about me specifically?
Yeah, oh yeah, you specifically. Basic just courtesies, or what would be a good decision to make in a life, a life changing, or something maybe mundane instance. I'm gonna give you all an idea. Hey, come on, chat. Don't leave me hanging. It's Sunday. Let's see if we can have some, and be jackasses if you want, some serious question. So I'm going to ask. And
I will keep them very short answered.
Oh, yeah. Well, but good. You always do. Don't forget about trying to be short, Zero. Just be zero. So my question is this. 16 years old. You're 16 years old. you're doing fair in school. You have a B average in school, and you have the opportunity to go to work on a farm, to actually work for a farmer, knowing that when you take this job, it's going to entail work during your school year, and then it might cost you a little bit. In other words, you might even drop down to a B minus. In that situation, what would your advice be to a young person? Would it be more important to go out and try to get a real life skill while you're making money and maybe let your academics suffer? Or would you think that at that kind of age, at 16, it'd be better if they just didn't think about work at that time and focused just on academia?
I think unless you're actually raised on a farm, don't even fucking bother, because you're going to get your ass kicked. If you're 16 years old and you're not raised on a farm, go out and work at fucking McDonald's, keep your grades up, have a nice day, save your money, go out and get yourself a car, and invest in your vehicle so it keeps you going from point to point in your life. And then when you trade it in, you can get a better vehicle, because you're physically going to get your ass kicked if you've never done farm work, especially if you're at the age of 16, because usually when you start doing farm work, you're doing it with your dad, you're doing it with your mom, and you're probably around 9 or 10, and you're not playing fucking video games. So if you're a 16-year-old and you've never done farming, don't even bother, because you either give up school and do that all the time, or you need to finish out school, keep your grades up, and work a humdrum job like McDonald's or Walmart or something that's a lot more flexible, because being a farm boy, that ain't flexible. It don't work that way, especially in the summer, because you'll be so used to the hours that when school rolls around, you're going to be like, oh, and you're going to have a hell of a time dealing with it. That same thing goes for kids that work in factories during the summers. They're not allowed to work in factories like the actual average factory worker, because they are a certain age group, but they do have a work permit. So they're allowed to work part-time, but that's different. But it's something that you have to get used to.
All right.
And that's all there is to that.
And I kind of, you answered it really well anyway, because I didn't just mean farming. I meant basically a job. So your advice is that if you have a chance to get to work doing something you can, that it is a good idea to do that young. That's pretty good. So I actually got a question here. I believe what Susie Monkey's saying is, she says, what's the biggest loss with city? Cool. And then just right after that, she says, do you wish you'd never left the farm life? So I guess what she's asking is, what disadvantages are there to moving from that country farmer life to a city? And
I've never been a farm boy. I don't know where everybody thinks that I've actually lived on a farm.
Well, but you've described yourself as a farm boy before, as that kind of mentality. I don't mean by that. I guess that has fallen into everybody's mindset that it's
yeah. Okay. It's the farm boy mentality is you work hard, you pay your dues like anything else, and you take care of your family, and you keep your ass out of trouble. But you try to have a good work ethic. That's basically a farm boy mentality. You try to be a good overall person. I've never been a farm boy. I've lived in the Quad Cities of Iowa my whole life. And we are surrounded. Yeah, I've always lived here my whole life. And we have farm communities around us. And I've gone corn shucking during the summers. Don't get me wrong, but I am not a fucking farm boy. Never have been, never will be.
Well, but then you can still give us that Midwest perspective that comes from that era. That area. Well, yeah.
So I guess the question is, so I guess the thing I could say is, the farm boy mentality is basically you learn to adapt to your environments. It's because you should know, Ogre, there are days you go out and do your thing in the farm. Fucking weather sucks whether you like it or not, but you still got to shuck that corn. That's all there is to it. So people, I've never been a farm boy. I just have that mentality of, I like the Midwest, I like the farms, I like the atmosphere and the peace and quiet for as much as I can get it. And I don't mind living in the Quad Cities, because literally 3 miles outside, you hit the nearest farm colony, or you hit the nearest cornfield, and we're good. Huh. It's actually, you go outside of Davenport, and you are running across, shit, I'd have to look that up, but it's Petersburg or Parkersville or some shit. And it's, just the second you hit across the bypass and anything along the Midwest here on the eastern Iowa coast, you're gonna get farmland.
Yeah, it's big, wide open. I've been out there quite a few times. Been to the Quads, Davenport, Rock Island, Moline, and whatever the hell that other one is, Bettendorf.
Yeah.
It's something. I bought a motorcycle out there once. Had my first made right about 100 miles north of you.
The Maid-Rite actually originated in Muscatine, Iowa, which is a town 30 miles away from me, south.
They eat them there, though. That's a really good sandwich, too.
Well, they're called loose meat sandwiches. The loose meat sandwich is not a wholly original Iowan invention. It's been around for a while, but they decided to basically just do what McDonald's did and say, yeah, instead of hamburgers, we're doing loose meat.
Yeah, well, that's the only place I know of right now where you can get one of those. I've had some similar things in New York where they just kind of have ground beef and they put it in a hoagie bun.
Yeah.
But the idea of the big bun, big burger bun, and it's got to be large, and then just stuffed with meat, and that's the way they give it to you. They give it to you with a fork.
Yep. Yeah, and you usually have, like, if you want your toppings on there, you get the bottom of the big bun, you get the loose meat on there, and then you throw it on there, then you put the big bun on there, and then you get a plate, you get your fork because you know it's going to fall out, and you enjoy.
Yeah.
That's also like Ross's Restaurant's Magic Mountain is the only one in existence anymore. But you can see the thing about these ogres, you can find these recipes anywhere and enjoy them. Just because Iowa may have created them or modernized them doesn't mean you can't find something on the internet and enjoy them, because that's probably the best. Yeah, that's probably the best way to do it.
Oh, I'm not saying that. I'm saying
if
Mrs. Ogre was here, she'd remember the name of the Maid-Rite place we went to in Clear Lake, Iowa.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is just find the recipe and do it for yourself and enjoy. I mean,
oh yeah, they're good.
These are some of the things that making big old vats to these. You know how some company barbecues have like these big old vats of hot dogs and shit like that. You know, where there's like 150 hot dogs in there that have all been cooked in. You can take one of those big old trays, put loose meat, let everybody do their thing, and have a nice day.
That's right. Yeah, I'm all for that too. I love to home cook a lot of stuff. I'm trying to think of something like that right now, and really what's coming to mind is like Rocky Mountain oysters. I've had some of them deep fried, with batter. But there's few places. Oh, I'll tell you something else. A lingua burrito, a tongue burrito out in LA. But that is, it's just one of those things. If you're at a place and they sell you and you see a sign that says Maid-Rite, if you like hamburger, get it. And you'll see something there, like Cyril said, you can make it at your house, but you'll see a loose meat sandwich, man. And do you think that it makes a little difference that in the places I've been that were the real ones, they had like a giant grill that they walked all the way around, and on that giant grill was probably 25, maybe 30 pounds of ground beef with onions and whatever else they put in there. And do you think it makes a difference just, cooking it like that massive amount? Probably not. I don't know.
Well, I think if you don't have the people there to eat it, you're wasting a lot of product.
Oh, I don't. Well, right. That's what I'm just trying to say. I know what it is, man. I've been studying psychology my whole life. I just don't like to admit that I harbor a lot of, false realities. So in other words, when I walk into a greasy Maid-Rite joint, what the hell? I wish I could remember the name. Mrs. Ogre's screaming at me from wherever she is right now, trying to tell me the name. I just can't hear her 3 miles away. In Clear Lake, Iowa, man, and they give me it just tastes better, man. You hear the lingo. Those lads, they got a heavier accent than you have. They got a really different way of speaking. It's a different place, and it makes the burger taste better to me.
Well, there is a Maid-Rite in Clear Lake, Iowa.
Uh-huh.
So it's probably where you went.
Yeah, it's the best 4th of July I've ever been at too. We used to try to get through there as often as we could when Mrs. Ogre and I drove truck. We moved furniture, and we would try to go certain routes, and that was one that any chance we could get through that town, we'd go. And I'm sure the people that live around there, it's like any place else, familiarity breeds contempt. But for us, we loved it. The bastards did steal our license plate. I had a little RD 350 Yamaha that I kept on the truck.
Probably because it was a Yamaha.
Well, they stole the license plate. It was Michigan license plate. So they stole the license plate. I had a white Tiger that I tied to the front that I won in Bellingham, Washington at a fair. And I had it zip tied to over the front light. They took that too, but they did take my license plate. But other than that, that's the only thing that's what your rabble gets up to there. Sometimes the Midwestern boys can be mischievous. And I know there are the odd ones that go out. It seems like a Midwestern phenomenon. I don't know. I guess I'll ask you this, Zero. Do you know what Devil's Night is?
We talked about this already about 3 weeks
back.
I thought
so, and you said no, right?
Yeah, I said we don't do that. We have Halloween.
Man, I don't know if that's just a Michigan thing. Maybe I think it's Michigan, Ohio, Indiana.
We had talked about that because it was reference to the Croton. It was literally the night before Halloween.
Yep.
And it was like, yeah, we know what that is, but we don't celebrate it because we do the Halloween thing. But yeah, we discussed this we discussed this like about a month back.
Yeah, you're right. I don't want to make it ad nauseum. I'll just say that up here the night before Halloween, Zero, I won't sleep much that night. I'll be up. I'll have both my air rifles loaded, cocked with a safety on. And if some ruffians get up, some young, they're always 10 to 14, 15 years old. You really won't see them in trouble more than a 22 pellet lodged firmly in their calf. You know what I mean? Something like that. But
down here, we're always okay with toilet paper in the trees and stuff. It's when you decide to throw eggs under cars that we start whipping our guns out and shooting at your ass because that shit will eat away at a paint job and it pisses us off.
Well, what they like to do is
literally destroying our you're destroying our property. We don't give a shit about toilet paper because hell, that's funny. We don't care about smashing.
I wouldn't care about toilet paper myself there, but the snot-nosed bastards here, you know what's big around here? They put brake fluid in a squirt gun. And if you see a kid in your yard on Devil's Night, squirt your car with a squirt gun, a water gun. No, man, he's squirting with brake fluid. And for those of you that don't know, Zero probably does. Wherever the brake fluid hits the paint, it's going to bubble up, and you just wipe it right. The paint will be gone.
Yeah, that'll basically eat through the clear coat, depending on the potency of the brake fluid.
Right through it like it's nothing. If you don't, I mean, you got to wipe it off right away, and it'll still fade the color a wee bit. If it sits on there overnight, you're done, man. It'll ruin a car. But that's one of their tricks. No, last year they came in my backyard, and what ended up happening was there was about 15 or 20 of them that was off about 100 yards in the field and just had a bonfire and a party. I didn't even walk down there. I mean, I could see them out there. I could hear them. I stepped outside and walked to almost the edge of my property. So I was about 120 yards away, and I could hear them talking shit. They're just a bunch of young boys down there drinking beer. And if I went down there, being an adult, I'd had to call the law because if you're there, in fact, I don't even know if I should have said that. So maybe they weren't drinking beer. Well, I could hear them talking shit. I don't know what they were drinking, honestly. I couldn't see it. I'm gonna leave it at that. But they sometimes get up to more than that. When it do, because it would be, when the fiery branches come into somebody's, put up for the winter cabin. And I mean, that's the biggest thing around here. Sometimes kids will vandalize stuff in a pretty vicious way. Toilet paper, so what?
Yeah,
soap on the windows, so what?
Yeah, we don't care about that kind of stuff. That's not a big deal to the rest of us. It's just the fact it's like, look, here in the city, when you start pulling shenanigans like that, we get a little pissed off because you're basically trespassing. And Iowa state law is if you go into our yard and you touch our cars, that's the same as trying to break into our house. We can basically whip out a crossbow, a bow and arrow, or anything and shoot you in your hiney, and you can call the police all you want and be like, why are you here? The police won't give a shit.
No. Well, and in Detroit, they've had a curfew of dark on Devil's Night for a shoot since before The Crow was a movie. It's since the 80s. Ever since I remember, when Mom remarried, we moved up to Flint, Michigan from Louisville, man, and the whole thing is different. Halloween, it's a big deal here, man. Here, my biggest thing the last couple of years is I watch my chickens, man. I don't want these kids to do because and inevitably what they're trying to do is troll. It's an old school troll that dates back decades here. So somebody gets somebody's, heaven forbid, cat or dog or chicken or whatever the hell they get their hands on. They got a little too much booze in them, and they, chop the dog up or whatever, and because they're all young and stupid. I mean, I ain't advocating this by any means. I'm just saying this is what some of the people get up to. And then you know what it is in the paper, Zero. Devil worshippers in the woods. And of course, there's a lot of times they even draw shit in the blood. It's because they're trolling these morons. They want to get their dumb asses in the paper and laugh about it.
people have been trolling people long before the term troll ever became a viable word in the lexicon of American literature or psychology due to the internet age. We've been doing that shit for years upon years upon years. And the thing is, each generation thinks they're the first to be trolls like that. And the reason us old timers laugh is, yeah, we did the same shit and it's funny. You know, we recognize that it's funny. But we've been doing that shit for hundreds of years. We've been goofing on each other, spoofing on each other, trolling on each other for all, you know, years upon years, decades upon decades. And it ain't really no big thing. It only becomes personal when people fart with your car or your house.
Sorry, man.
I'm not repeating that.
Breaking my thing. No, I actually had a whole break in my dealio here. Should be better now.
So,
well, I'm not sure what you said, but
I said we've been doing that shit for decades upon decades. The only you know, we've been trolling each other, you know, goofing on each other, pranks and stuff long before it became a word in the American lexicon because of the internet age. We've been doing this shit for years. Yes, and again, we always think that we're the first ones to do it. And we get a kick out of it when we get older because we realized, yeah, other people do it too.
Yeah. Well, it's a big deal here, the whole Halloween thing. I think we were ahead of the curve in this state as far as, I mean, right now it's overtaken Christmas, I believe. It's right up there. I think it's second only to Christmas as far as, you know, how much money's spent, what people,
see, that's the thing. It's about money. People don't make money off of Thanksgiving. It's not about traditions, but it's about the corporation saying, how much money can we suck out of people? Because not even literally, I can tell you on November 1st, at least in Iowa, people say, oh, let's put up our Christmas stuff. Or I'm like, all right, back the fuck up, people. We still have Thanksgiving, so we're putting up Christmas stuff. Fuck you. I don't do that shit.
I don't put up no Christmas. I don't celebrate Saturnalia. I don't celebrate Samhain. I don't celebrate those. I mean, I have fun all year long. But
yeah, see, I don't give out candy or any of that shit, and people will be like, trick or treat. I'm like, no, you go next door. Why? They're the ones with the big candy bars, and they'll just run right over, and it's no big deal.
Well, here they don't trick or treat. I told you what they do. They come by and vandalize.
They do that shit here. They get shot at. We don't deal with that crap.
Now in the city, in the town, even that's about 5 miles from me, little town, they trick or treat there. But the first year I was here, I won't lie, I was carried on a tradition from my old man. I turned the porch light on and sat out there with the bowl of candy. No one came by. The next year I just turned the light on.
You are on a farm.
The door, nobody came by, so I just didn't do it.
But you are on a farm. I'm actually in the city.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, there's no way. I don't even know how you'd let kids walk, because the one road that isn't by the house, you know, after dark or even close, there's nowhere to walk, man. A Harley just went by. I could hear it. He's probably doing 65. And it's just a little, it's not even a 2-lane highway. It's just a 2-lane hardtop road.
And that's the difference. In the city where I'm at, in a city structure, whether it's a metropolis or if it's more of a small, you know, burg like where I'm at, everybody knows everybody, and all the kids go together and they have their little cliques. You're out in the boonies, basically, where people think they can get away with shit.
Exactly. Well, in this time of the year where I'm at specifically, there's a lot of people are gone. It's just that time of the year. There's only, I don't even know the percentage. It's not a huge percent. I'd say 60% of the people live here year round. 40% are gone in the wintertime, which is now. You know, they just go back to wherever, Detroit, Chicago, wherever the hell. Thank goodness is what I say. Get out. Every year we say the same thing. Get the hell out. Come back next year and bring your money. They go home and we relax. And then by the time we're all out of money, they come back and spend more. It's a symbiotic relationship we have. They're not complete parasites, is what I'm trying to say. They're symbiotes. Now we could exist without them. But sometimes I wonder if up here, they couldn't exist without us up here. But anyway, I guess down in the city in Chicago, we couldn't. I don't know, man. I don't know how I'd make it in Chicago. Go there to visit sometime, but like to live there? Oh man, I can't imagine. it's just the press of humanity. The whole, oh, Lord have mercy.
Yes, I was actually talking to my parents the other week, and I said, "Hey, are we doing anything for Are we doing anything for Thanksgiving?" And they're like, "I don't know. We might make a small turkey because certain things have happened within the family where we're not getting all together this year." My daughter, who graduated Friday from basic, she won't be home for Thanksgiving. She'll probably be home for Christmas, but that's different. I don't have to work. My wife doesn't have to work. So my wife and I might end up going over to my parents' house since they're in their late 70s. But my sister ain't going to make it. Her husband ain't going to make it. And the nephews ain't going to make it. And that's fine. And so it's one of those things to where, and the problem is America itself has basically devalued Thanksgiving because of all the bullshit. And we don't even give a crap about Halloween because I was helping my mom do something, and we pulled out these very old ceramic Halloween decorations from like the 1970s that if you dropped them today they would break, but they're still pretty well built and sturdy, and you could actually stick a light bulb in them and they wouldn't catch on fire and melt and all this other stupid type of shit. But we saw that and say, "Hey, you guys do anything for Halloween?" "No." "All right, fuck it," and that was it. They don't have any kids in their neighborhood anymore. We don't barely have kids we have some little kids in our neighborhood, but not that many. So it's one of those things, and we're just more focused on what do you guys want to do for November? Because when November rolls around in our family, we start planning the big 3 events. We plan for Thanksgiving, Christmas Day, and then we planned for New Year's. Because my parents can't go out and drink anymore, but a lot of my family does go out and drink, so it's kind of like, okay, see, I don't. So it's like, okay, well, somebody going to be the designated driver. We're going to have to set this up, do this, blah, blah, blah. And that's just the way it goes. But for Christmas, it's like, where are we getting together and how many people are coming? Yeah. Because we used to do it over at my nephew's house, but he fucked that up. And all I'm going to tell you is he ain't living at the house no more, and there ain't going to be no house anyway.
Bummer.
Hey, he's the idiot. He's the one who did it. And he's on my wife's hit list. He's on my hit list. He's on my daughter's hit list. He's on everybody's hit list. And he's just like, well, that's just the way things happen. I'm like, you fucking idiot. But you get the general idea. At this time of the year, we start really, we don't give a shit about Halloween. Not because it's unimportant. It's like we have no kids. All our kids are growing up. And all the other ones that are, they all live out of town. So it's like, well, they're not here with us. So we bunker down for the last 3.
Mrs. Ogre blows it out twice in 1 month. We have a hell of a Passover. Or excuse me, what I was saying. We do have a Passover, but it's not quite that. I don't know why. I think it's because we eat lamb. But we have a hell of a Hanukkah, and then we have a hell of a New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day. I think she usually makes the big meal. New Year's Day is what it is. I'm sure it is. And I mean, we got the big table with the leaves and whatnot. She puts the leaves in, and it's just her and myself and the king, and usually his son, 4 of us. But the table looks like it's, there should be 35, 40 people there. I don't want people thinking we're wasteful either. I mean, it all gets eaten. We all divide it up, and the king will take a bunch back. We have lamb, and we have lamb usually about 4 or 5 different ways. Once in a while, we'll have turkey, but that's another long story. Mrs. Ogre and I poisoned ourselves when we were very young with a turkey. I think it was the giblet gravy I made. Anyway, I've never really had much of a taste for turkey after that. Love lamb, though. But that's the thing, and we do it not quite like you're saying, because it's just us, man. I mean, if the king and Logie didn't come over, it wouldn't be. We'd still do it. There'd still be that big table all filled up, and it's just our couple times a year where spring and then in the winter like that where we just cut loose.
Yeah,
Passover's good too. That is our Easter. So Easter, what all you guys would be for Easter and for Christmas is basically what I'm talking about. And then New Year's Eve is thrown in there just for the hell of it.
Just for the record, this goy does not celebrate 99% of the so-called American holidays. I only observe Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, Memorial Day, and basically the military holidays. I don't give a crap about the other ones.
Well, I seen Dank today. He put on some about cultural appropriations, and he was like, "You can't celebrate Halloween, which is really Samhain, if you're not Druid." And he's, he's Scottish, so I thought that was hilarious. Anyway.
Oh, speaking of all these jackhats saying that little girls can't dress up like Moana. I'm like, you bite me. You can bite my ass right now, because if I see some kid, if I see some little girl dressed up like Moana, I'm going to say, hey, cool, that's cool. I like that movie too. And if I hear some adult say, you can't do that because you're white, I just turn around and say, oh yeah, what's your kid dressed up as? Oh, she's like, well, let's just say she's Princess Elsa. Oh, that's cultural appropriation. You're not whatever, Scandinavian or wherever the fuck that story comes from. So you can't do that either. And they'll get mad about it. It's like, well, I don't want to hear about that crap. You leave the little kids alone. Let them have their fun. Let them dress up as whoever they want because they look up to them or they love the movie or something.
Well, that's true, man.
It's mental retardation at the finest.
I see some people talking out there, and apparently Susie's in Great Britain, and she's going to be there this Halloween with her kids, and 10 and 7. And so they're not going to have the traditional, because when I was just talking the other day, Zero, to the boys who are both English, talking about, you know how it was when you were young, you went out trick, and the British are actually, no, they didn't. It's not an English thing. It really isn't. They don't do I guess they, and to what they both said, they do now to a lesser degree. But the idea of, have you ever seen them things, man? They do it at Christmas too. It's basically a blow up snowball, like what do you call them things? You hold your hand, shake it up in a snow globe.
Yeah,
but they put them outside. They're like 8 feet tall, 8 feet circumference, and they got have a vampire in it or something for Halloween.
I couldn't tell you.
I see some of these at Lowe's, Zero, and they got like a little squirrel fan that comes with them that keeps them inflated. Some of them look like during Christmas look like snowmen and Satan Claus and whatnot. $800. I was like, damn, man. We were the family that my mom, she was big into decoration, but she, I'm sure she still got boxes somewhere that's like front of the house lights, south side lights, back of the house lights, lights for front tree, lights for blah, blah, blah. And the first thing you plug them in, you check the broke ones, replaced them. You know what I mean? She had the same string of lights from 1968, from back when they made this shit. It's like it all worked. And, we put up all that stuff, but it was cheap. I don't know how else to say it, but it was cheap. I'm sure the first time she bought, Halloween decorations, which were like some rubber bats and who knows, a couple skulls. And of course we got pumpkins, she might've had $10 invested. I don't know. Anyway, I see it's overkill to me, but I am sorry for Susie Monkey. That was my strange way of saying, I'm sorry about your Halloween for your children. I hope that you can find some party to go to if you haven't already, and that they get a little taste of the United States. It's got to be different going from the great big US of A to rinky dinky tinky little small UK, and have all those different things. Everybody's driving on a wrong side of the bloody road. They don't know how to celebrate Halloween, all this stuff. Hopefully they have a good time though. I'm sure you'll find a way. Give them extra treats, man. Like make them so the good thing is that a lot of those treats they have over there got liquor in them. So make them like that. I think it's called plum duck. Make them some plum duck, and it's with rum. You and you don't cook it out. You put the rum on it after you make it, and then you soak the spongy cake in rum, and you give them like a slice of that, and they'll be drunk anyway. They won't care. It's, it ain't the same kind of, and it's not America. You can get your kid drunk in England. It's cool. Everybody does it. Yeah, they're whining or crying. Zero, cool. You give them a brandy or a what do they call that? Some dry sack, a bit of sherry. Some cream sherry or something.
No, I've never actually had any of that sherry or any. I see, I'm not a drinker, so.
Oh, it's god awful. Like cream sherry is basically, it's wine that's, instead of being, you take a Merlot, it might be 14.5, 15%. A cream sherry is 23, 24% alcohol. A dry sack, that's up there, man. That might be closer to, it almost tastes like somebody poured a shot of whiskey in your wine. You know what I mean? It's strong is the difference. But I only know that shit because I read about, and they talk about, I was just reading a book called From the Corner of His Eye by Dean Koontz. And the bad guy, the antagonist, he's killed his wife to come into this money. Long story short, he drinks dry sack. And when he does, he's like complaining because he can't get a decent sherry. you know, and that's the reason I know. I have tasted that kind of shit too. But whatever. You're not a drinker. I imagined you to be at least a once a month balls to the wall man.
Nope.
No,
I've got no constitution for it.
Well, I don't mean my balls to the wall. That don't mean how much. It means if you get buzzed up and feeling right on 6 or 5 or 4, that's what, you know, like once a month you cut loose.
Somebody's dog is cutting loose.
Yeah, that's my Thorn dog. Oh, I said Thorn dog. Wow, that was a slip. That's my Lily dog. Thorn's been dead for 4 years. Looks just like her though.
Yeah, I'm not a drinker. I just I just don't like drinking. I don't like smoking, any of that kind of crap. I've never done drugs, none of it. In fact, I've tempered myself pretty well over the last few years. I was over at a friend's house, and on the way there, this idiot cuts me off in front of traffic, and he follows me literally for 5 blocks and threatens to beat the crap out of me in front of my friend. And I'm just standing like, okay, sorry, my bad. Just like that. And he goes, well, and I'm like, well, you know, you did cut in front of me. You about took my front end off of my car with my wife in it. And I gave you a middle finger, and then you're coming over to my friend's house, and you basically stalked me and harassed me, and you expect me to give you an apology for flipping you off when you about hit my car? Yeah, and I go like, well, then you should be thankful that I'm not kicking you for your balls right now and sending you home in a body bag.
People got a lot of nerve, man. I don't think people.
They do.
I'm not saying that. I don't know what you've done, Zero.
They don't realize how much I keep myself in check. See, that's always been my thing, Ogre. I have a temper, but I keep myself in check for the very good reason of, 1, I don't want to have a heart attack. 2, usually, you know, fighting usually doesn't resolve anything, and people think this is a weakness. No, I could decimate you. I could decimate people very well. I could kick them in the kneecap, kick them in the crotch. I could break their arms. I could separate their arms from their shoulder sockets, all just because of my martial arts training. But people are just so damn cocky these days. And I'll tell you, if I drank, that would go out the wayside. I'd be in jail right now. I wouldn't have any inner monologue or, you know, inner control of things. And people, you know, people push buttons all the time. It's kind of like, you know, this is why you don't drink.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, that's the way it goes. I choose not to drink lately just because I drink too much when I do, as a rule. I'm not only am I not a once a month guy, when I cut loose and just do it the way I want, I mean, I would drink a 12-pack of beer and, you know, a quarter to a half, a fifth of scotch a day. That would be, so in other words, a fifth might last me 4 days, but rarely. It usually lasts me 2 days.
Yeah.
Of, you know, something decent. And it's a lot of money. And I mean, after a year of that, you know, I at least woke up and was just like, I mean, I never felt good. The whole 9 yards. I mean, it's booze. It is what it is. And so I you know, that was for me. That was just the way I looked at it. And hell, I don't even know how long it's been. I was keeping track, and I know there's a video on here. It was like, I think it says something like 27 now what, or I can't remember. But like soon after that, I had about 7 beers, and after a month of not drinking, damn man, that was seemed like a lot of booze. I was hungover the next day. And then I just was like, damn, why? And so for me, I'm not the kind of person also that should, and I've even been to an AA meeting or two. It's just fun to drop in once in a while. And there are people that are doing something and they're not drunk at, you know, noon or whatever. But the idea of going and keeping track like that and getting a chip that has, oh man, I'd be fucking drunk right now. What else to say? Yeah,
you know, I don't drink like 99% out of my entire life. And the one time I did drink, we were having shots, and I bought a thing of Kraken whiskey. Sorry, Kraken spiced rum.
The Kraken, oh, that's horrid shit. 100 proof, that's terrible shit.
It's strong stuff. Ooh. And we were watching some stuff from Ricky Gervais. And he was talking about, and it's the cartoon segments where they're talking about their bald friend who's kind of dumb and goes on his adventures. And the Carl, what's his face? But he was talking about, and we were just, every time it was like one of those, it you know, it was my wife was gone for a week, and she had some business shit to do, and I wanted to get was kind of depressed, so I got a little plastered with my friends at my friend's house, and we were watching Ricky Gervais making fun of Carl Pinkerton, and every time one of the characters, you know, one of the guys said a certain group of words, I would take a shot, and another certain group of words, my other friends would take a shot, and all this other stuff. Well, I ended up getting more plastered than they did, and it was by the time that they got to and it was on YouTube, so you can find this stuff on YouTube, and they got to the part where Carl Pinkerton is talking about how jellyfish are like 97% water. If you were just to add another 3% of water, they just, you know, disappear.
Nothing.
And I was literally on the floor pissing myself, laughing horridly. And this is why I don't drink, because I lose control. But it was so funny. But you know, that was a good 7 years ago.
Well, to each their own. And sometimes something can bring somebody joy, or somebody goes too far or whatever. I think it's good when you know your limits. I mean, to hear you say that, that's the biggest thing. You know, if a person knows their limits, and I'm going to go so far as to say with heroin or crack or whatever. I mean, believe it or not, I know a dude right now that's been smoking crack for years, and I mean crack cocaine. But they function. They seem. I don't think everybody should do that. No, don't get me wrong, but they just happen to be one of those people that have this strange willpower that they're able to exert. Myself, no, I'm not one of them. There's no way on earth I should ever do. I think a seriously addictive drug like that, and I'm not recommending anybody else does. That probably sound a little bit weird, but it's always my go-to. You know, you got to mention heroin because everybody's like, heroin. Well, yeah, heroin should be legal, man. Come on, we shouldn't be telling people what to do. What is that, Zero?
Oh, that's the. I want to show people the link that you can find this on YouTube if you want to hear about the jellyfish being 97% water.
Gotcha.
So if you look up Carl Pilkington, I said Pinkerton, but it's Pilkington, Sydney jellyfish. You guys can watch that shit and just laugh your asses off and enjoy.
Yeah, and I ain't gonna be much longer anyway. We'll give. There were some other links. Somebody sent a link to George Carlton earlier. So if that one's gone away and you did, somebody didn't get it, maybe popped it back up. I think it was what did that? Will Fisher. Somebody popped one up. Loafer. Somebody was pretty. I gotta look. I've seen the routines. It's pretty funny too. It's nice to have a Sunday where you ain't got to do shit. I know that. Is technically, I know I keep beating you up about Halloween, but technically Halloween's over kind of now, right? Because it's going to be what, Tuesday? What is it? Monday?
Yeah, Tuesday is the 31st.
Yeah, that's going to be actual Halloween. You know what I used to, I mean, being a preacher for a while, I always think of it as Reformation Day, because that is the day that Martin Luther King nailed his 95 thesis on the Wittenberg Castle door. And
Now wait, I actually, and I hadn't heard of this. I'm not changing the subject. You're just talking about it being on Tuesday, but I'm not sure if people went trick or treating Friday or if they're going to do that tomorrow around here. Because sometimes they do it like a day before.
Right. Well, the kids get screwed because come and think of it, we never got Halloween off of school, did we?
No, we didn't.
No, we didn't. I remember actually like walking around through the school and dressed up in a costume and then like trick-or-treating from class to class, basically. And then they were, and then you sat down, you could see it was just they made a long parade out of us is what they did. Each class would go walk through and then you go through in turn. That way, in turn, everybody walked through every class and everybody's seeing every costume. And then the teachers or whoever teachers.
That's what we used to do.
Yeah. But I guess we didn't get a day off. I actually, I tell you, I always loved Halloween, but I always went as a hobo, and I went in what you call blackface, right? I mean, I went as not a minstrel. I wouldn't call him minstrel, but I went with the full on, how you doing, boss? Kind of face. And so I don't think that'd fly nowadays, but not only did it fly back then in the neighborhood, hell, I went to school and dressed as a hobo with blackface and a big red nose. Got a stick and put a bandana on the end, tied up with some rags in it, make it look like my lunch or something was in there, and old baggy, raggy, suspenders and overalls, coveralls, whatever, and old engineer boots that were all sprung out, and too big for me.
Well, see, when you were a hobo, that wasn't necessarily blackface, is because the hobos are basically dirty and they never get a chance to take a bath or a shower. So
but if you have all that, the way
you have all that dirt and dust on your face, of course you're going to look like you just got ran through the coal mill.
Yeah, well, I was Kitsy the Clown. This was after this, but for years, and I did a white face at that point. But when I did, you'd have to see, if I ever do find a picture of me and dressed that way later around here, I'll show it on camera one day if I'm reminded by somebody. But it was blackface. I mean, I had full on boot black with the outline around my lips and white in there, and then white under my eyes and over my eyes to make them look really exaggerated. And it was just full of, but you know, it is what it is. I think the reason, and I it was my idea for it all, but we didn't, you know, nobody would say at that time that was what am I looking for? A minstrel, you know. So I guess hobo was what it got stuck with. Just looked like a railroad tramp, a darky. That was the whole point.
A darky.
Well, I grew up with a Cuban family, man. Black as the ace of spades, all of them. And maybe that was my inspiration. Looking back, was probably one of the main reasons why I went that way. I don't know. But nowadays, there's no way. Could a kid even get away with hobo? With the hobo, because like you're talking about, you have to put on the, you know, you put on the brown makeup and you make the cheeks rosy. Because what is that, a Mexican? I mean, could a kid get away with that?
And the thing of it is, it's the parents that are shitheads. It's not the kids. Because if, like I said, if I see a little girl go through my neighborhood dressed as Moana, and she's clearly a white kid or a Latino or something like that, I'm going to be, oh, that's so cute. You know, I'm not going to disparage a child from enjoying something. It's the parents, it's the adults that are the shitheads that have the problems with everything. You know how many times, and I'm not trying to be mean here, but you know how many times I wonder if our police are actually just real policemen and not people, you know, playing dress up.
Sometimes they are just people playing dress up.
Well, that's kind of the point. You don't see people calling bullshit on them. They're actually police officers, you know. And I'm a Blue Lives Matter guy, but it's kind of like, you know, who's more juvenile delinquent, the kids or the adults? It's the adults that are the goddamn. They're the ones that are the juvenile delinquents because they've got no fucking sense of humor.
Yep. Oh, I just watching this dude. This cop pulled this kid over, right? And handsome young kid, got a nice, looked like, I think, a Ford Mustang, brand new, you know. And him and his buddy were in the front, and this beautiful young girl was in the back. And this guy, I mean, by the end of it, Zero, he tackled this kid down and just, and I mean, ground and pound, you know, a la Bones Jones style in the UFC, you know, like John Bones Jones, just grounded and pounded his ass, hitting him with just face punches with his fists and kneeing him, and I mean, tore him up. And in fact, when he did that, the other cops jumped on the other boy, and they neither one of them were resisting. And when I see that, it's like you say, you know, they found an empty vodka bottle. I guess because he pushed it so much, they got to breathalyze him, and you know, he was .08 or whatever it was. It wasn't even that high, 0.10. But in the end, you had a kid doing nothing more than being a fortunate young man that was born handsome with parents that could afford a nice car, unless he had a job. I don't know, bought it himself, whatever. And you had a jealous cop. It was obvious what was going down, that just wanted to beat this kid up in front of this beautiful young girl that he probably would never be able to, you know. And I'm assuming a lot. I got to admit that. Yeah, but damn it, if that's not what it looked like to me.
Yeah. I'm going to shout out to Susie Monkey right here. She was asking about how can kids dressing as Disney princesses be racist? It's basically the liberal agenda is basically saying that it's cultural appropriation. It's bullshit. And it's like I said, if a kid wants to dress up as if a little black girl wants to dress up as fucking Snow White, go for it. If a white kid wants to dress up as Princess Tiana, go for it. I don't give a shit. Yeah. Kids are just having
Cinderella,
fun.
You'd need to be French. Snow White, you'd need to be German.
Yeah, and do we really need to be getting this bent out of shit? The point is, it's the adults who are not having any fun, and they're taking the fun away from the fucking kids.
Yeah, fun governors, bunch of fun governing bastards.
Fucking fun Nazis is what they are.
Look, Susie Monkey, don't take this the wrong way, but this doobie's for you and your kids and your family.
So
yeah, I hope that they grow up and they're not dope heads like me. But this doobie's for you all. It's my way of just like having a drink to you. There is no racism when it comes to children. When
no, there isn't. It's strictly adults. They're the ones with
Yeah.
the mental problems.
That's right. I'm not too old that I don't remember being in the schoolyard in Flint, Michigan, where it was very, very what they'd call diverse. Now we just didn't know that we all lived together.
Well, you know, when I was
white and black, though we didn't have a lot of Mexicans and whatnot, but we had a lot of white and black kids.
When I was a kid, going to young middle school over here in Davenport, there were black kids and white kids all hanging out. We would listen to actual cassette tapes, and we'd play a heavy metal song 1 minute, then we'd play a rap song the next minute, then we'd go back to heavy metal, and then rap and trade it in and out, and we would pop those tapes in and out so fucking hard. And then we decided one day, let's just make a mixtape, and we were listening to it during lunch, and nobody had a problem with this. Nowadays, you can't do that. I'm like, you can kiss my butt. I'll do whatever I want. I'm old enough. I can. My insurance is better than yours.
Fugi's in Japan, and if you're in Japan, he says no ganja. That's the rumor. The idea of drugs, man, because basically what it is the Japanese government lets the Yakuza do its thing. Prostitution, gambling, whatever, extortion in some cases, whatever they do. As long as they don't do the drug thing. And they don't. The Yakuza themselves, they do not move dope, man. They don't sell weed, nothing. And so basically in Japan, the idea of street drugs, they really don't have them. They got alcohol and tobacco, which is bad enough. But that's kind of funny that it's Furnace Talks, whatever it is. My eyes are so bad. I'm not going to
Fenris.
There you go. Say it again.
Fenris.
Fenris Talks. That's Fogey. It's Foogie. It's the Fogmeister. It's Foogie. Remember? I mean, I know you know that name, Zero. You've been around long enough. But apparently he had something went down. He had to change his name. But yeah, there's no way. If you're in Japan, I mean, I can't say no way. I'm sure you can get cocaine and heroin and all of that there. It's going to cost you, and it would be very, 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 very difficult. In other words, even for a pothead like me, if I could even find it, I wouldn't go through the trouble. It'd be like, fuck that.
I was down to Muscatine the other day, and I went to this local store on 2nd Street that sells herbalistic oils and all this other stuff. And it didn't bother me one bit. I'm helping a friend run their store and helping them out. You know, this is about a week back. So I said the other day, it's literally about a week back before we went down for my daughter's graduation. And I'm still in Texas, by the way. I'm actually doing this from a laptop in Texas.
Oh, that's probably why the strange sounds.
Yeah.
Well,
and
Texas.
And they're talking about legalizing pot, and I said, you know, the problem is a lot of people don't realize that pot and hemp are two different things. And I said, if we really want to legalize pot, why don't we just do the simple thing of what I think Amsterdam does, where you're allowed to have hash bars, and you can carry it on you, and you can take it home and smoke it at home, and you know, there's really no problems, and they actually tax the shit out of it. But no, people want to make difficult fucking things out of stuff. You know, it's called It's called Big Tobacco.
Yeah, well, they love Japan. They love China. They sell a lot of cigarettes over there. The funny thing is, tell me one more thing, Fugi. Over there, because he said it's funny thing. He's 15 years. I'm sorry for simple possession, but where else was it? He said, I'm covered in tattoos. So all the bathhouses I've been to all had Yakuza in them. Because tell me if I'm wrong, that's frowned on over there, right, Fogy? That's frowned. I'm going to mangle your damn name, Fogy, Fugi. Look, I've said it 50 different ways, so I'm going to stick with Fogy. That's Froggy, whatever. That's frowned on there. If you go to a water park, there's only like 1 or 2 water parks in Japan where if they allow a visible tattoo. If you're there and don't have a shirt covering your tattoos, you can get out because that's what it's associated with. So is that what you mean when you say that, Fogy? Is it because the only bathhouses that will let you in have Yakuza in there because they allow tattoos? Is that what you mean? I'm wondering that. That's pretty cool anyway. Regardless, it's so hard to talk to the chat, Zero, because they're on like at least a 30-second delay. You know that. But
yeah.
Cool. This is groovy. I might even kick back. Any other questions for Zero? Fuck the farm boy thing. I was just trying to be. He's like Midwestern, hardcore. You can tell that with you, Zero. I mean, listen to you, like, you know, most of the things you say, whether you live in a city or the country, farm boy, or grew up as a tech geek, it doesn't matter. Your ideas, what you think is rooted in that middle America kind of attitude. But any more questions? I'm going to wrap this up quick. I can smell, you know, Mrs. Ogre is making stuffed red peppers tonight. Stuff with couscous.
All right, that's it. How many people want me to drive from Texas, pick them up, and take them to Michigan for some stuffed red peppers on the house?
Lord,
courtesy of Ogre.
It's a long way to go, but it'd be worth it. I can smell them.
Press 1 if you want me to kidnap Ogre and his red peppers. Press 2 if you just want the red peppers.
You know what? After the summer I've had, it wouldn't take a lot of kidnapping if somebody was going to get me the hell out of here, take me to Texas. I don't want you to dox yourself, but can you say where you're close to in Texas? Beaumont, you know, Houston.
I'm in San Antonio.
San Antonio.
We're literally right outside. We're right outside of Lackland Air Force Base.
Oh, okay, San Antonio. Yeah, right. Yeah,
and on the opposite side of that is Edwards Air Force Base.
Yeah, my boy went to basic training there for the Air Force. A nice town. You know, you going to get a chance to go to the riverfront?
Oh, we've been a little bit of everywhere. We went up this what was it called? The Towers of the Americas or something?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh God, that freaked me out. That shit just fucking freaks me out. It's just like really way up there, and you know what? If you guys know anything about that kind of shit, I'm not a big fan of heights. So yeah, I still got drug up there.
Up in the Sears Tower.
Yeah, it's something along those lines. Yeah, you're not gonna get my ass. It's like being in it was like the St. Louis Ark when I was a kid, except you were sitting in a barrel when you did that, and no, hell no.
I went up to the top of Sears Tower years ago. It was in 1988. And back then, we all went up, and they had the observation deck that you can see on Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I stood right on the rail and put my head on the glass, just like they did in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I mean, because there was a gap about a foot and a half between the rail and the glass, and you could see down about 2 stories to where, you know, you could see another floor down there where that cutout area stopped. You were only maybe 3 stories from the roof. Maybe not even that. It might have been, I honestly can't remember how far up it was to the roof. You were really close to the top. What a beautiful view, man. I mean, unreal. You could walk all the way around. You could see Chicago. You could look up to Wisconsin. You could look over the lake. See all around.
It's called Willis Tower now.
Flat Earth.
It's called Willis Tower now for some fucking stupid reason.
It's always going to be Sears Tower to me, homeboy.
That's damn right. It's Sears Tower. That's all there is to it.
Tower. I've never Willis Tower. There's so many cool buildings down there. There's one we call the Lipstick Building. It looks like a lipstick tube with a diamond cut on the top. And Adventures in Babysitting. It's the one that they like slide down the front of it, of that building.
Yep.
I was the first time I went to Chicago to go to the Field Museum and the Shad's Aquarium. They were just building that building. That was not even done yet. You know, I got to say this for Chicago, man. If they get their heads out of their ass and tell the people of Chicago, the law-abiding citizens, that it's not the law yet, but they strongly suggest that every resident of the city in the city limits of Chicago carry a firearm with them and learn how to use it, that they have 1 month to show themselves proficient in the responsible use thereof. You know,
I don't know what Chicago you're talking about, because everything I hear about Chicago, Illinois is they want to strip them of all type of guns.
They don't have any rights. You can't carry the BB guns, the pellet guns. I was showing stories earlier. I just took some pictures and put them on Twitter because he showed an air pistol that he has. I love air rifles. None of the air rifles that I have. This is a 25 caliber Benjamin, illegal in the city limits of Chicago. It shoots the 25 caliber pellet over 1,000 feet per second, so it's illegal. You cannot defend. The only people look how much it's helped on gun deaths. 0. Look how much that's really. Oh, what am I saying? It's almost as bad as Juarez, Mexico, which also guns are absolutely illegal. Bullets are illegal there in Juarez. There was 58,000 people killed last year in homicide with guns last year in Mexico, and guns are not legal there.
Susie Monkey asked, why is Chicago getting so bad? It's very simple. Democrats.
Oh man, I don't want to go that blanket statement before I say something. At least elaborate on it without just saying that, because you're going to get attacked as just being some kind of.
It's very simple. Illinois has had a majority of Democratic senators, governors, and Congress. They've had very little in the regards to balance of Republicans or conservatives overall. So what happens is a person like Barack Obama, who was a state representative for Illinois, had basically written into law, and I'm not saying Obama did this, he helped vote it in, yes, but they basically committed a stranglehold on the entire state for their civil rights, in which they claim, yeah, that once we get rid of these certain things, you'll be fine, as well as taxation, which is why they're always in the red. So when you're in the red, because you have no money, you can't have the law enforcement or the laws that are supposed to be upheld being upheld. That's one of the reasons why Chicago is getting so bad, because you've had a majority of one party over the other with very little to no balance. And while they have Bruce Rauner there as a governor who is a Republican, nobody is working with him. They're making things very difficult to get accomplished. In fact, I recall earlier this year, I think a little bit before middle of summer, they were having teacher strike issues. Not that people were going on strike. It was about renegotiating contracts, which they shouldn't do. And that's a tangent for another time. But they were basically railroading Rauner from getting anything done. And he was willing to work. He was very bipartisan on a lot of things that were basic things that needed to be done, dealing with taxes as well as the teachers. But once again, unions come up. Once again, it's the liberal ideology, or it's strict Democratic parties overruling everything because they're not getting what they want, when they want, and how they want it. That's kind of why Chicago is so bad. That's why kind of Illinois is messed up as it is, and why as a state it's more in the red, almost as much, if not equal to California. That's the problem, Susie. That's the problem.
Well. And I'm working on this. Can y'all see that at all? Can you see that, Zero, if you're even looking at the screen? I'm working on something where I can actually show the chat as it's going. Oh, I can see it right now on the screen. It's not bad. It's a little fuzzy. I'll work on it, folks. I'll work on it. But this is something I'm going to work on, to where when it's times like this, in fact, all the time, I can choose to at least show the screen in some way. Oh, did I just lose it? I just lost it. No, who knows? Oh, there it is. I guess it's back. It's back. Ha, whatever. Yeah, and that was well said. It's hard for me. I don't want, if I say Democrats, well, I got to go back a long way, man. And the Democrats have done a lot of bad things. Republicans have done bad things. I would say in the last 100 years,
easily,
it leans further to one side than the other. The demos have, man, I mean, the KKK, you name it, man. Sicking dogs on poor black folk down south. That was all Democrats. I know that the powers that be want people to believe that that is Republicans. But before in this chat, we were talking, Zero, and it came up about JFK and whatnot. And look, man, LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, was the one that said, you know, I will give those darkies entitlements, and we'll have those Negroes voting for us for the next 100 years. Now, I'm paraphrasing that.
And again, that's pretty much what happened.
That's what happened. And so what goes on is the best thing for, because you look in the rural areas, and myself, my black friends around here, of which there's about maybe 10-15%, and the rest of us white folk, we all say, well, we live an hour away from the cops, so we have to have handguns and rifles and things to protect ourselves. I'm looking at a machete right now. Zero, I can see a machete, and I've got 2 air rifles that'll kill you 100 yards away within reach. You know, I mean, I have plenty of deadly force within reach. And we also, well, we got to have that because of the, and then they say, okay, but then you've got this demographic of black folks, very, very poor white people. And this is the same case for the mountains. I'm not going to even get into that. Let me stick on this. This demographic of black folks, a few Mexicans, a few very poor white people, but for the vast majority, like, they really want them and take this for what it is. They want them on this plantation. The Democrats have been the ones that were they were the plantation owners back in the day of slavery. They were the slave owners. They were the KKKs. They are all the way up to modern day. Use a demographic for whatever you can use them for, whatever you can get out of them. And why? Of course, because they're not human. They are a lesser being than you are. That's where this comes from. Unfortunately, it's tough to not put a label, to put a name on it. And so, yeah, I stuck with zero and said, it's the demos, it's the Democrats, it's these. But more to the point now, we're getting further than that, folks. Now it's the communists, it's the socialists, it's the nutcases that call themselves democratic socialists. Well, of course they are. Wasn't it, who was it, Stalin? Well, maybe it was one of them that said, well, of course, without democracy, you couldn't have socialism, because democracy is not what this country is. This country is an elected. We have a representative republic. We have a representative democracy. We vote for people that don't change their mind. Everything. If you want to, I could go on and on and on and on about the differences between that. Let me just stick on this. What we have is deeper than the Democratic Party, and therefore Chicago. It's a socialist and communist movement. Chicago is exactly what they would want. If you look at the slums, at the ghettos, let's use the word ghettos, of Prussia and later Germany, and how they concentrated the Jewish people, took away their autonomy, took away their ability to have commerce, taxed them into oblivion, charged them taxes just to be and live. You could get hit up. I mean, it really, look what happened. Was it because, I'm not trying to make some big apologia. You can go and you can watch Colin Flattery all you want, and I do too. And yes, it's true. These things are happening with black, but why? Why? I'm not going to pull a Richard Spencer or what sometimes seems to be with Colin and some other folks, Vox Day, and these people that say it's because of race. No, it's because of the situation that the race is in. Is it because we live in a racist society? No, not really. It's because the ones that are their leaders, the ones that are in power, that are the leaders of the black folks, Maxine Waters, people, the biggest racist I can point to right now, Maxine Waters. I'm trying to think of the black dude's name, Mr. They called me the N-word, but it come out that nobody did. Oh man, he's in the news too this week. I can't remember his name, but I'm not great with names, and he's irrelevant. All these people, Pocahontas, these people are all race baiters. That's one thing they have in common. They're all Democrats. That's another. They all push this socialist agenda. That's another. And they all have their thumb on this demographic that happens to be black. That's another. And they tell these black people that if you don't vote for us, you're an Uncle Tom. Look, as bad as it would hurt Zero Cool or myself or anyone else that's white inside their heart to be called a racist, when I can speak for Zero Cool, he's not a fucking racist. I think he is, you kiss my ass. I'm not a racist. What would hurt us more than that is if we were black and called an Uncle Tom. I mean, then that's your own kind telling you that you're, that's like self-deprecating Jew. Someone calling me that hurts. That's saying that I can't even, that my own kind, I hate them. Self-hater. Well, obviously this is something deep for me. So it's socialism taking over. And what do the socialists want? What does Mao want? What does Pol Pot want? What do they want? Stalin, all of them. What do they want? They want your guns. Hitler, they want your guns. To own a gun in Germany by 1939, to own a gun without the proper papers was death penalty. That's what it was. And that's what they all want in the end. The same people, Antifa, these same ones that I looked at today, and whether you believe in abortion or not, right now, the law in the United States is abortion is legal, period. Period. And that's where I stand. Now, if that law changed, I hope that they would never change it to say that it was illegal under any circumstance. I may or may not think that on demand for any reason, abortion isn't a good thing, but that's my opinion right now. But that's the top 9 of their 10 objections, this resist fascism. It's they this with abortion, they this with abortion, they this with abortion, they this with abortion. And then the last one is they this with transgendered bathrooms. Is that really a dire something? Is that really a fascist regime? Or would the fascist regime push their agenda on you whether you liked it or not? And I guess, Zero, if you have anything else to say about this, I'm going to let you. That's why we don't have guns. The socialists have taken them once again. And Zero's right. They just have to be called Democrats.
The truth of the matter is it's the younger generation that they have not studied history. They do not look at what happened in Cambodia. They have not looked at what happened at Vietnam. They don't even know what the hell the fall of the Berlin Wall was and why Soviet Russia gets spoofed on so much in regards to memes and everything, because they don't study history. Had they studied history in any way, shape, or form, they would realize all this shit's been tried time and again, and it never fucking works. But they think that, well, the problem is they're a bunch of spoiled little crybabies that live off their mommy and daddy's money, and they don't have any real skills for themselves for the most part. So they don't know what it means to have to take care of oneself. It's because they think that, oh, well, I don't need a gun because I've got somebody that I can hire to protect me. That's not how it works when you live out on a farm and you've got animals that the coyotes are trying to eat. So long story short, and I'm bringing that up. Long story short is,
I love you worked at it. I'm just reading the chat. Go ahead.
But it's very true. But the long story short is they don't know. They don't learn from history. They have no hands-on experience. They think that because of whatever money they do or someone does or doesn't have, that hired help is always going to defend them. I got a little news for you. Politicians are going to start pissing off our military so fast. The military, every branch is going to turn their guns right around on them, and they're going to say, well, you need to all give your guns up. They're like, bitch, we're the military. We ain't giving up shit. And that's all there is to it. And that the people that make all this so-called money from people out there that have literally no money, that they hire the people to protect them, well, they'll piss on their hired help so bad one day the hired help will say, fuck you, I'm out of here. And who's going to protect them then? That's basically what it breaks down to. I don't know what he plans on doing, but I plan on getting out of here because I'm getting tired. It's been a long day, and I've got to eat dinner. So I guess I'll have to wait till he gets back. So does anybody have a question for me that I can answer in the meantime till he gets back? I'm fine. I'm old and cranky. How are you?
Thanks. I just got back. Yeah, it's hard to go this long without even a stretch of the old legs. Nature was calling so hard. If I resisted the call much longer, there would have been a serious problem here.
You wouldn't have had no kidneys.
But we got that out of the way. And, you know, the whole thing, it's not really, to me, it's not a touchy subject. It's, what happened was around 1919, you had a meeting on Jekyll Island with J.P. Morgan and
can you hold on to that thought real quick?
There was several families there.
Can you hold on to that thought real quick? Fenris Talks asked me a question. What other cultures than your own interest you? Japanese culture, Japanese history, South Korea. I'm a Taekwondo student. And Greek mythology, and I love ancient lores of practically everywhere about the planet. I think everybody has something to offer, and it's fun to learn from. And I love white peonies. If you're a little kid, you can ride those home all day like a horse.
I think you know Foggy's in Japan right now, as a matter of fact. Zero.
Yeah, I know. But I study Taekwondo more than anything, but I end up growing up with like all the old stereotypical Japanese stuff from like the 80s movies. So that actually
Taekwondo is Korean.
Right, it's South that's South. I was more into South Korean history as opposed to North Korean, because North Korea really doesn't have any histories. They pretty much all wiped it away.
If I'm not mistaken, the Japanese people look at the Korean people more or less as Negroes, the way that you think in derogatory. I don't just want to be gratuitous with
I couldn't tell you. I'd say if that was about North Korea, I could understand.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll be corrected if I'm wrong. Some people, they go over there. Koreans do, and here's the fact: Japanese just don't like folk in Japan. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's the truth. They like Japanese people there. I watched a thing where they were asking them about like ISIS and stuff, and I mean, your average Japanese person they don't have it there. They don't really. It's not what they do.
Well, they don't tolerate it. There's the difference. No. And the fact that we do tolerate it is disgusting. But that's anyway. I'm getting ready to get out of here. I've got to go eat lunch. I got to go eat dinner.
Sure, appreciate it from Texas, man. It was great having you by. I got a little bit more left in me, and I'm gonna get the hell out too. I can smell my tea getting cooked. So sure, appreciate it. Is there anything you want to plug or say, or any last word?
When I get back, when I get a chance, I'm going to talk about a little bit of Osamu Tezuka's Phoenix Saga, which is a Japanese manga, which is one of the books I remember reading as a kid. I now own all 12 volumes of his uncompleted work, and I will get to it sooner or later. If anybody follows me on Twitter at Dade L. Murphy 85, you can find me on YouTube here under that through Twitter. That's one of the things that I'm going to be working on with Thorn Inside. She's going to be the editor, and it's just something I want to switch over from doing this kind of stuff to just talking about books, and I promise I will stay calm and not yell at clouds. JJ Soda Rock. That's about it.
That is great. What a good girl.
Everybody have good. I've got to go eat dinner with my daughter. She's not coming home for probably until Christmas, and I'll stay in chat here, but we're that's just to help you have some views.
Hey, well, yeah, whatever it takes, man. I ain't gonna be much longer. At this point, everybody could leave. I mean, I hope whatever they can do, but it ain't gonna be much longer. But Zero, are you driving back?
We took a plane.
Okay, good. Well, I'm sure
I would not drive. I would not fucking drive from Texas.
It's a long way. Well, that's a lot safer to fly. So I'm glad. All right, man. Let us know when you get back, brother. Be safe.
Yeah, I probably won't be back until about mid next week. Or mid this week, man. I should say, since it's now Sunday. I keep thinking it's Saturday, but it's Sunday. Everybody have a good weekend, and I am out of here. Thank you, Ogre.
All right, brother. It looks like we're going to also Fogey's taking off. It must be cool over in Japan. It's tomorrow already. He's getting ready for his day because it's like 6 in the morning there. 6:15, I believe. I'm not sure where he is, but I think if my time segments are right, it's close. It's tomorrow is the cool thing. But I think we got to, man, it's just so tough. I always get drug into these little Twitter spats because it's like, you're a pro-lifer. For one thing, if I've got to be labeled something, let it be pro-lifer. Let me be labeled pro-life. I don't mind that. But I don't fit in that group. Stories was saying, it's funny that most pro-lifers are like these bomb everybody. No, man, no. To be perfectly honest, when GW first was dropping bombs of shock and awe, man, I was young. It was like, wow, look at that. Yeah, America. A little older now. I realize those flashes and bangs are dead bodies, broken homes and houses. And I don't know if that was worth it. I didn't think it was worth it then. Just like the big explosions, was too young to give a shit. Yeah, but it's happening here. All this idea, all these things coming from this anti-fascist stuff that I was looking at. What the hell's the name of that? I'm going to look this up because I want y'all to look into this. I want y'all to see this. I don't want this to be a secret. I think that this kind of thing is, needs to be called out into the light. It's from. It's coming up right now. Refuse fascism. I'm going to send the link out right here. Refuse fascism. And this one is too. If you scroll on down, you'll see where it says a nightmare. And then if you keep going, no, I'm sorry. Let me get to the right one. I want to make sure that the one I send you, you don't have to worry about trying to click or find. It's because there's a place where it says what Trump has done and what the Trump-Pence regime, they keep calling it, has done. In fact, look, I'm just going to send this to you because this is the about side and you can navigate it. Anybody here it'd be easy enough to find whatever it is that you want to, if you want to look into it. And they say they want one thing, they want one thing only. They want the Trump-Pence regime to resign, to get out. Come on, that's a big ask. And you're talking about a process that's done. It's done. They tried to do this, by they, I mean the left tried to do this when GW won, you know, and he won by the vote, by the electoral college. He lost by the popular vote. He just scraped by in Florida, just scraped by. It was a lot closer than this one. Never came to anything. I think it may have. I don't even remember if the ruling was for Al Gore, but it was too late. Whatever. It's done. Yes, we have a representative democracy. Yes, we have representatives that represent us. And they go and they make decisions. We don't always like them. We can vote them out, but we don't get together as a whole and vote, even on the president. We're not unique in that. Over in Great Britain, they have MPs, members of parliament, that the public votes in, and the MPs elect the PM, the prime minister, who is the prime minister to Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth, right now. And that's the way it works there. They don't even elect the prime minister, but there's still a representative democracy. This is to save us from me and you people, because what we think is best right now today may not be what we think tomorrow. We're very easily influenced, and hopefully the people representing us are not only influenced by money, which in a lot of, and don't get me wrong, it's definitely not a perfect system. And the people representing us have their own influences, and a lot of them are very bad, and we don't, have nothing to do with us. I would say this: if we want to change, if we want to do anything different, if we want something different, if we want it to be better, then we have to do something. The Britisher said it so good in the bullshit thing that he did. It has to be something that comes. You can't expect a Donald Trump or a Hillary Clinton, if she would have won, or anyone, or Barack Obama, or whoever, to come evangelical-like, to descend as a savior, to Messiah-like fall on you with saving grace and power to deliver. What do we want? What do we expect? We have to do it ourselves. We have to not accept laws that we wouldn't want imposed on us. I hope everyone will remember that. Don't accept a law that we wouldn't want imposed on us. That would stop us from doing a lot of things, from making a lot of laws, that's for sure. And Loafer, yeah, I'll get to this link. In fact, I'll open it up in a new window right now. So I'll have it here. Oh, that's the George Carlin thing. Yeah, so that's the last one put up. And I'm almost done, folks. I'm just about done. I can really smell my tea. Just about finished over there. I'm debating. Press 1 if I should fire the doobie back up. Press 2 if I should hit the vaporizer. I will wait to get some opinion on that. Resist fascism? Are you kidding me? It's beyond fascism what they're pulling. This is some kind of bait and switch like I've never seen in my life. These people's very existence is predicated on a falsehood and a lie. There's nothing here. Apparently, the worst things that are happening, 9 out of 10 are abortion related. And then the other one is transgender related. Those are the horrible things. Nobody's, all right, I already got one. I'm going with the first one too. Number 2 was the vaporizer. Thank you very much, Soda Rock. I'm taking your advice and hitting my vaporizer. Strong nicotine. It's the strongest kind I can get in this state. I love nicotine. Just don't want to smoke cigs. Don't. There we go. Got 2 anyway. And thank you, Deplorable Me and JJ Soda Rock. But it's already here. So the academic agent, he gives me hope. We had Uzlu on the other day, and Uzi, I call him, and he gives me hope. Academic agent, because I believe he teaches the youth of tomorrow. can't force them to believe anything, but you can give them a choice. You can give them options. You can give them different voices. Hopefully they'll pick the correct one. If you have a professor promoting Marxism, you're going to get Marxists. We don't need more communism and socialism. It will give us more Chicagos. It will be the end. Oh, and speaking of the end, this is the end for me. I just want to thank from the bottom of my heart weltschmerz Stories, Artemis Brain Sample, and Zero Cool. All of you gentlemen, very, very fun to talk to y'all. You three are some of my three. Zero Cool on air, especially to verbally, and Artemis and weltschmerz are two of my favorite to ding dong back and forth with on Twitter. Seems like we can express ideas to each other and nobody goes away with a big hurt butt feeling. Yeah, now it begins. You got it, JJ Soda Rock. And look into that. Because I could go, I'll give y'all, because I don't know if y'all are still chatting. I haven't been looking hard enough. If y'all need another, hang on, let me see. Mrs. Ogre, how long do we got till dinner? All right, well, I got 10 minutes. And thank you. And 10 minutes. And then roasted red pepper. I can smell them right now, man. Ain't nothing going to stop me from that. Just so wonderful. The best. And by the way, I'm working on probably order it when I get off here. It's about making my mind up. It's fun, these chats that we have. It's fun. I enjoy it. I like being able to speak to this ambiguous, somebody that's watching me and making comments over here. But I just love this format. I really do. And as much as I enjoy it when people are here, I have it that way because it's probably more enjoyable for you. This is my favorite time. This is my favorite time where I can convey an idea to you folks. You can chat amongst each other. You can let me know what you think about what I'm saying. But I can also get that idea out. And so thank goodness for the academic agent, Oozloo. We need people to say, check out as many voices as you can. For me, do you care to know? I'll tell you. I believe everybody has the right to bear arms. Definitely in the United States. I think every person on earth should have the right to bear arms. Should it be a nuclear weapon? No, but people should be able to carry something that's a reasonable tool that will be an equalizer. For a young lady in a dark alley in the evening, she's coming home from work as a waitress in some restaurant in New York City, and someone tries to rob her or rape her. She would have, there's something there, and it should be encouraged. It shouldn't be looked down on. As long as there's crime and violence, which is, I'm thinking, going to be forever, those things should be in place. Should we have police also? Yes. But let me ask you something. Do you think the police are always honest? Are they ever corrupt? We got this big narrative now by the same people that want to take guns away from honest folks that say, oh, the cops kill black people indiscriminately. And they're sexist and racist and homophobic. But they're the only ones that should have guns. That is insane. And I'm sorry that, I'm sounding like Steven Crowder. I'm not parroting him, but I just heard him saying this. And yes, it chimes, it harmonizes, it synchronizes with my own self. There's a resonant frequency taking place, weltschmerz. And good to see you in there, brother. I thought you were going to be busy. But no, I don't live that noble of a life. I try to. So let's resist fascism, of course. Let's resist socialism. That means the link I sent out, look at it for yourself. We would resist these people. They're talking about a big demonstration in several cities on November 4th to say that we want the president to step down. Oh my goodness. I mean, that's a big, tall order. They say this is our only request, like it's really reasonable. And then the list of things, as I said, that they have a problem with are all 9 abortion and 1 transgender bathrooms. Come on, man. I'm sorry, it might have been transgender in the military. I left the link there. Because if I misspoke, I'm paraphrasing. I might, so look into it yourself and ask yourself, what kind of world do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a world where people are willing to impose laws on you that they don't want imposed on themselves? And if the answer is no, I don't know. Come on, folks. I got to say it. Jump on the Trump train. Give Trump a chance. He's been doing really good. Look at his tweets like you'd look at your own tweets. Look at his ideas like you'd look at your own. Remember, he's not a polished politician. This is one of the few times I'm ever going to do this, too. Nobody here can call me a horrific pundit because I don't think anybody here has ever heard me say anything like I'm about to. Roger Stone's been banned off of YouTube. Come on, write a letter or two. Nothing wrong with Roger Stone. Can't believe everything the guy said. And as the Britisher pointed out so astutely one day, no, I wouldn't want to buy a used car from Roger Stone. But we shouldn't be kicking him off of YouTube. Whoever they are. I say we because y'all are here and I'm here. And if it wasn't for you all watching me, I wouldn't be anything. And if it wasn't for me, even little me, if it wasn't for the Britisher, even little Britisher, even all of us little people, there would be no YouTube. So no, man, please look at Trump like you look at yourself. He's a person, he's fallible. I wish he did a lot of things different because he doesn't come across so well. And now he's got this ultimate authority, and you know he's a strong authoritarian. He talks about this war on opiates. It gets my back hairs all up, and yes, I've got back hairs. It gets my hackles up. I've got hackles too. So I'm not saying do it. Don't by all means don't worship anybody or whatever. Don't kiss no Trump butt or anything. But get on the Trump train. Elect some people that will shake things up. You know. If you're in Great Britain, pressure your people, your MPs. Tell them the Brexit's happened. Even if you didn't vote for it, it's time. The Brexit's happened. It's time we did it. Time we kept calm and moved on because that's very British. But look, folks, being a nationalist isn't a bad thing. I wouldn't suggest you go out and you start listening to every single thing Augustus Invictus says, or Vox Day, or some of the others I've mentioned. I recommend you go listen to them, though. I recommend you listen to Antifa, and that you listen to Lacey Green and all these others. But I got to go. There's time for dinner. So, you know what I'm going to say then. I don't think there's anything else in the chat. Oh, y'all have a great night. Be good to your friends. Be good to your family members. Be good to your loved ones. Listen, be quick to say you're sorry. Be even quicker to accept an apology, especially when that thing your friend, your family member, or loved one has done seems to be so huge, you'll never be able to forget about it. Because, constant viewers, at a time you think not, your friends, your family members, your loved ones, your life, your cause, and your country will depart from you. Stuffed red peppers.